Scriptures.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody who may be listening. This is a really special night for us. We're doing this new version of the FS on air, the Fan Scripture podcast. We don't know if it'll be like a reboot, quote unquote, of on air, or if this is gonna be like a new show, maybe with like a different title. We don't know for sure, but we're very, very excited. And to start us off on this new episode, we have two very special guests. We have the previous hosts of FS On Air. We've got Silver and Jornk here, who, as I understand it, are interested in passing the torch to me, Johnny, and my co-host, who I'll be introducing here in a bit. But for now, I'm gonna pass the mic, as it were, to Jornk and Silver.
Hello. Very much. Thank you for our very warm introduction. And well, there's many thoughts, but all good things must come to an end. But I don't like to think of this as an end, because it's just a new beginning, really. I've been here since FS On Air 1.0, as I like to call it, when Flash was my lovely co-host, and now Jornk has been my other lovely co-host throughout FS On Air 2.0, as I like to call it. We've had our run for a couple of years, and I think I can speak for us both when I say we've had fun talking about the ups and downs of fan scripture for the past couple of years. We've been doing it at least since the 1.0 incarnation, since I think, was it the beginning of 2020? It's been a long time.
It would be like in 2019.
Yeah,
you're right.
Sorry to interrupt, but Jornk, you said in the text channel that you did 24 episodes total. You did 12. Silver's done 24. There was 12 with Flash, the 1.0 co-host, and then 12 with you. So that's a really good run.
Yeah, no, that is literally a half and half split. And
that is
honestly,
correct.
First of all, I'm like, for me, it just kind of puts into perspective like how long. I mean, both me and Flash have been doing this, of course in different eras, but regardless. But also like, wow, I genuinely lost track of how many episodes I've done that were published. So I'm glad I got the offer for 2.0, because I mean, I already really wanted to return to the podcast after that always retrospective. And, even though we're passing the torch now, make no mistake, I definitely had so much fun. So much fun. Being able to, talk about, different projects at different points in the, I guess, FS eras, whatever you want to call them, or, really getting to dig into the shorts or the Greek meanings for those special occasions. It's just been fun, I love talking about writing,
Totally. Yeah, and I'm just, incredibly thankful, incredibly appreciative for, the both of you being so gracious in passing the torch here, because, this really did sort of come about quickly. Like, it was just an idea we had to sort of revamp the podcast and try something new, and we'll get into the details of like what this new format is going to be here in a second. But yeah, I appreciate the both of you so much, and you're just the best, and I'm very glad it worked out like this, and I'm hopeful that down the road you guys can come back whenever you wish, or whenever we'll have a topic that I'm sure either of you or perhaps even both of you would be interested in hopping on for.
I'd definitely be happy to.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'm totally stoked to get to that point. But yeah, for now, I hope it's a fond farewell for the both of you, and I hope you enjoy what comes next.
I'm sure that we will, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to say goodbye to our hopefully loyal audience over the past several years, and thank you for coming up with a new idea to revive the podcast, because even I must admit it has been somewhat dead in the water for a while, considering as of this recording time, no telling when it will be uploaded. The last episode that we re-recorded, even though it hasn't been uploaded yet, it likely will as one of the lost episodes, or at least that's the current plan soon.
Yeah.
The last episode that we re-recorded was FSFF 2023, because I can assure you we recorded the original version so late that my voice was nearly gone and I was almost asleep at my keyboard by the time we were done. And nobody wants to hear that. Whenever that gets uploaded, I'll be able to. But point being, it's been a minute since we were in the recording booth, let alone since one was uploaded. I think it's been since 2022 since one actually got published to the channel.
Oh yeah, no, I checked. I can confirm that. I double checked myself. But you know what? I recently, I'm not gonna spoil it. Obviously, our new hosts are gonna tell you what the deal is. But the plan I have been told for the podcast moving forward is one I'm very, very excited about. So,
well, I appreciate that.
Oh yeah. So to all the people out there who think I have a good opinion, this is either great for you, and for the people who think I don't, this is probably terrible for you. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, great. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the both of you coming on, and thanks for starting this podcast journey so that we could continue it.
Yeah,
absolutely. We look forward to seeing where it goes. For the both of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Before I go off, I have to say one more thing.
Oh yeah.
What's that?
I'll see you guys on the next Angry Joe show.
All right. Well, I don't know about that, but we'll see you around. That's for sure.
Yes. Yeah, no. I'll see you around.
See ya, everyone.
Is it future or is it past?
All right, and with that, we're just gonna get the show on the road. So to tell y'all what's going on, what the deal is with this new format I mentioned. Well, first of all, I have to give a wonderful introduction to my wonderful co-host. You know him. You might not love him, but I love him. He's a great buddy. He's a great guy. He's this podcast that we're doing, this new format, it couldn't be anybody else but me and this guy right here that I'm doing it with. So, welcome Noah to this new show that we're hosting. This is a big deal because we want to do a podcast for a while.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, we're doing this podcast about fan scripture, which is just so exciting.
True. This has been a long time in the making, kind of. I mean, just a podcast between the two of us, just in general. I mean,
yes, But we came up with this great idea relatively recently to turn the FS podcast into a new format. We're very excited for this this new journey that we're stepping on. And so, yeah, just to say what's going on, we recently came to the realization that there are, as of recording this, in total 75 fan scripture projects that have released in some form or another. Some of those are, older projects, older movie scripts that we did way back in the day. Some are TV shows that had finished runs, others that had unfinished runs but still had episodes come out that we can read. So we just thought it would be a great concept for us to just step back into the history of fan scripture, really, and take a look at all of those projects that we've spent, now going on 7 years writing, which is crazy to think about.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're going to be doing individual episodes, just sort of rereading, as it were. We're just going to be talking about them, discussing them, reminiscing over them. And we're starting with Spider-Man 4, the project that started it all, the project that is the reason fan scripture even exists. And we've got a lot to say about it. Now, Noah, I'm sure you will agree, particularly with older projects, we might not have great things to say at times.
No, I mean, not at all. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it's understandable, that we've had just, we didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't figure out everything yet, I mean, we've said this millions and millions of times before, but it's true, we can't really properly judge it now. I mean, we can, but it's not really fair. It's not good, but there's those factors like that just go into it. It's understandable. Why it is the way it is.
Well, I mean, it's not like we're still releasing perfect scripts. You at the time of recording this, you just came out with your Doctor Strange Odyssey project is the most recent fan scripture release, and
it's a very controversial script. Controversy over that script.
Yeah, you're no stranger to controversy.
Okay, but let's just say at least that script is formatted correctly. There's nothing wrong with it, in that respect.
Debatable. But no, that's a good script, and it represents, sort of the standard of quality that we have on fan scripture these days.
Right.
But a lot of the scripts, particularly older scripts that we're going to be looking at, don't. And that very much applies even to Spider-Man 4, the godfather of fan scripture. We'll get into it. But yeah, I'm just very excited for this this new thing we're doing. Hopefully it works out. Hopefully it's fun. And you have anything else you want to say before we get started, Noah?
Do you want to go over what Chucky said on everything he put there, like his little notes, or do you just want to...
Oh yeah. So Chucky, our great studio executive, coincidentally also the director of the original project, Spider-Man 4. He's not... We sort of wanted this first episode to just be me and Noah, to settle us in. We wanted it to just be the two of us. He's going to be on a bit later when we get to another particular project that he also directed, and we're going to be talking all about it, and all about sort of his body of work in general, I would say, particularly in the early days of fan scripture. But yeah, so Chucky gave us a little summary of a lot of the history of Spider-Man 4, why we wrote it. So it started with, the Raimi memes community, like 2017, 2018. There's a channel called Scripture, which was it was such a weird concept. I don't know why this happened. It was just people in that server posting line by line every bit of dialogue from every scene of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, which is, I don't know why they did that, but it is sort of why we got here to fan scripture, which was us writing our own content, obviously, and it was because they wanted to do Spider-Man 4. So they finished up Spider-Man 3 in that original scripture channel, and Chucky, who was friends with Spider, the other original fan scripture studio executive, they came up with this plan to, do fan scripture, to do their own version of Spider-Man 4. And it ended up being decided that Chucky would direct it, essentially be the main, he would come up with the plot, right? Like, that's what you'd say director does, I guess. It was kind of different back then because it was more like they would come up with stuff on the fly, which didn't really work, which is why you don't really do that anymore. But yeah, so Chucky was the director, and it's really funny going back to like early fan scripture, because there were just so many crazy ideas that just we'll get into it as we get into the script itself as is. But there were a couple different ideas. I think Spider wanted to do a Spider-Man 4 with Carnage, I believe, which is crazy. But it ended up settling on they were planning to do what the original plan was for the real life Spider-Man 4, which was John Malkovich as the Vulture with Anne Hathaway as Felicia Hardy, otherwise, mostly known as Black Cat, but there's a bit of a odd circumstance surrounding her character that we'll get to in a bit. But what Chucky ended up doing was creating this story with Kingpin, I think inspired by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark Bagley's Ultimate Spider-Man, those original comics from the early 2000s. So Kingpin's in the script, and there's a weird amount of villains in the script that
more than
doesn't all work. Yeah, it's a lot. It's even more, way more bloated than Spider-Man 3. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, so Spider-Man 4 ended up being very much shaped by the cast, which were, the friends and community members that ended up signing up or auditioning to play the characters, which was just like they came up with all these concepts that are now so commonplace to us in fan scripture as like just on the fly. Like it came together super quickly. And Spider-Man 4 has so many story elements that just came from the people who were writing it, like the person who was writing Vulture, or there were actually multiple people who wrote for Spider-Man himself, and we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I think it's about time we just jump into our thoughts on the script. But just for context, there is the original collaborative, writing effort in the Discord channel. You can still go read it in fan scripture, Marvel fan scripture now, if you want. But there's also the Spider-Man 4 PDF, known as 4.1, which is mainly what we're taking from, I think. Right, Noah? That's the one we both read, right?
Well, yeah, but, before you, after you were reading,
yeah, so
wrong
there's
version.
There's an older version of the PDF that I had spent a lot of time reading before I realized that it was the wrong one. That was a little ordeal. But it's not like they're too different. It's mostly just the 4.1, the official 4.1 revised PDF. Sort of just has some cleanups here and there. And yeah, it's interesting because it's the oldest, I think it is the oldest PDF we've ever released. And fanscripture PDFs are sort of supposed to be like, the refined, cleaned up, revised, finalized drafts of the things we write on Discord. And it is obviously very much better, with better formatting, better presentation, just better quality than that original Discord production, which is so very sloppy and weird. But then this PDF is so old, it wasn't really revised in a time where we did have a high standard of quality. So this PDF also has some really weird stuff and odd choices and stuff that doesn't make sense just because it was made at a time when we really didn't know what we were doing, like you said, Noah. Well, actually, you weren't even there when this script was
I was
released and when the PDF was released, which is crazy.
I think I joined after Spider-Man. After Spider-Man 6, I believe.
Wow.
Right when that was done. And I think I was there when Foes 2 was getting posted. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, we're going to be talking all about the whole Neo-Raimiverse trilogy, as it's known. We're going to be talking all about Foes, the Spectacular Foes of Spider-Man. We're going to be covering all of fan scripture eventually, but we're starting where our roots are, where we began. And we're going to be going in release order of everything we've ever put out. And we're going to be fair, and we're going to be frank about the quality of particularly these older scripts. I don't think we're going to be overly negative, but we're going to be honest.
Because, like I said, it's understandable why they are the way that they are.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me tell you, me and Noah, we understand a thing or two about some bad script production. So we know how it feels. But we're going to get to it all. So I think it's time we just jump into it, Right? Do you have anything else you want to say about Spider-Man 4 before we just jump into the script itself?
I mean, I remember the first time that I read this script. It was when I first
Me too.
joined. Like I remember exactly where I was and what happened when I was reading it, and I didn't. And the PDF, this version of the PDF, like this finalized version, the definitive version was out at this time, but I didn't know that. I just like read it in the Discord channel, and I just remember thinking at that time that it was so good. Oh my God, like this is amazing, all this stuff. And boy, let's just say, my thoughts have definitely changed. But, I think it's very funny how, like, the whole, this huge big thing that, attracted so many people to our server, this is really still our most
it's
popular,
what attracted me to the server as well.
It's still our most, popular script. It's still what gets people in the server.
It was the hook.
Even like 7 years later, it's crazy. But it for all its just bringing all these people in, I really reading it now, it's just crazy to think that so many people thought this was amazing when we've developed so much as writers. It's like there's so many better things that we've written, and
we really have grown a lot since this came out.
And I wish all the people that came in just to read this script would read, everything else that we've done, because it's such a clear, just development. It's such a like a huge contrast, in comparison. Like, I really cannot stress this enough. But I was really feeling some nostalgia when I was reading this.
Me too.
I know I wasn't like there for all of this, but just this script in general, and this whole Neo Raimiverse that we're gonna be getting into, it really just brings back a lot of memories. Now that we're gonna be, I really do sort of miss these days, but also I don't. I wish I knew, like, when I was writing, for certain characters in some of these projects, I just wish I knew what I knew today. I don't know. I feel like everybody.
I agree. I feel the same way whenever I go back and look at my own work. And I think everybody who worked on this script also feels the same way. So yeah, with all that out of the way, I think it's time to just jump into the meat of the script. It opens with it has a great opening scene. I truly believe the opening scene still holds up today, like as good. It opens with,
it's very good.
Yeah, Peter Parker, Mary Jane Watson, finally getting married, tying the knot, and it's a bit of a riff on like the wedding storyline from Spider-Man 2, I would say, and it even has a little reference because J. Jonah Jameson and the rest of the Daily Bugle staff are there, and there's a little joke about John Jameson, J. Jonah Jameson's son, not being in attendance, even though he has a reservation.
I believe Aunt May's not in attendance. Oh wait, yes she is.
Yeah.
Is that changed in the PDF?
I don't think she is. She's not. No, it's the Daily Bugle staff and Mary Jane's mother. But there's a reason that Aunt May is.
We will get to in a bit.
Yeah. It's something I think is really fucking hilarious. Is Gwen Stacy being a bridesmaid for Mary Jane, which is like crazy, because last movie she stole MJ's man. She stole Peter when he was under the symbiote influence. So it's just really funny that she's MJ's bridesmaid. Also, J. Jonah Jameson is Peter's best man, which is also hilarious.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I kind of love that. And they're getting married. The priest is I don't know if you call him a priest. The person marrying them is played by Stan Lee. It's a Stan Lee cameo. This came out before he passed away, I believe. I think passed away in late 2018, and this came out summer 2018, I believe. And it's funny because it feels so much more like one of the MCU Stan Lee cameos. I would say, like, because he's like just in a real scene and he's got all this dialogue and stuff and like jokes and whatnot. But like you look at the Raimi trilogy Stan Lee cameos, they're so subdued and quick and like blink and you miss it. It's not a bad thing necessarily. I just think it's funny. It's very much a product of being made in a post MCU world. Yeah, I really like the opening scene. I like it's simple and it's short but sweet, and it's to the point. You just get, you know, Peter and MJ are getting married. That gets you into it, you know? And then Stan Lee pronounces them man and wife, and Boogie Wonderland by Earth, Wind, and Fire starts playing. Very iconic song, iconic band, and iconic within the realm of fan scripture, because during the first session of this project being written, it took like 4 hours, and this was the only song they had, so they were playing it in a Discord channel just with a music bot, and it was on loop for like 4 hours, and it was driving everybody insane. So now a lot of the OG fan scripture writers have Boogie Wonderland PTSD, which is really funny. But whenever I come back to this script, I always think of that little tidbit whenever I listen to Boogie Wonderland, because that's not a song you'd want to listen to for 4 hours, I would say.
Yeah, no.
And yeah, we have this wedding opening, and then it pivots to Spider-Man, and he's well, first of all, we have to talk about Peter Parker. I think overall, in moments like this, he's written really well. He was originally written by Vic, the great Vic, one of our OGs. You know, he was Peter Parker at the very beginning of this production, and he was great. Like, it's so, even though the dialogue is like unrefined, particularly in the original Discord version, like you can tell they really got the spirit, I think, of like the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker, you know, very plucky, very, very happy-go-lucky. And then,
yeah, I mean, let's say like going from like the ending of Spider-Man 3 to this opening, it's a very like sort of seamless transition. And I do agree, like all the dialogue here, especially here, is very like spot on, kind of.
I would agree. Yeah, so Vic's great. Vic's a great writer. He's a great dude. Spider-Man in the original production ended up being played by, I want to say, Spider as well. Spider sort of was the director during the sessions, even though Chucky came up with most of the story himself. Chucky was, I think he was on vacation in Alaska, I believe, and so he wasn't really present for like the original Discord production. So it's just weird. You're in Alaska and you just miss out on this the first fan scripture project. Like, that's crazy to me. But yeah, Spider subbed in as the active director, and he also ended up playing Spider-Man quite a bit. And then later on, Peter Parker ended up being written by our great buddy Senna 0202, one of the best guys just in general. I think he's one of the best guys ever.
The GOAT.
The GOAT. Yeah, I agree. And Spider-Man, Peter Parker in this Spider-Man 4.1 PDF has the DNA of all those guys, and it also has the DNA of Chucky, who ended up being the editor and like rewriter of some significant portions of the script for the PDF. And in moments like this, Peter's character really just like sings, I think, and he comes through as like really authentic to the Raimi Tobey Maguire Peter. And yeah, Vic and Senna are also just awesome. Yeah, so then it's a great opening scene, and it pivots to this great montage of Spider-Man fighting these like mostly B and C list Spider-Man villains. We got Prowler, we've got Rhino, we've got Shocker, and we've got Stiltman, and we've also got Mysterio. And that's intercut with Peter and MJ as newlyweds. And it's a really fun thing, I think. It's very, very Raimi, you know? It's very endearing, it's very cool. It really gets you in the seat of like, yeah, I want more of this sort of Raimi style Spider-Man. And it's really fun. And it also, we have to mention, it sets up the the Spectacular Foes of Spider-Man, the spin-off. I believe the second fan scripted project ever came out, or started coming out right after Spider-Man 4, maybe even during Spider-Man 4. All those characters, Prowler, Rhino, Shocker, Stiltman, and Mysterio, they're called the Frightful Five here, and then they ended up being the Spectacular Foes in a great concept for a spin-off that I think we'll probably be talking about in the next episode of this.
Yes.
And the Foes, I think, are really just an iconic team, an iconic franchise within the realm of fan scripture in the Neo Raimi-verse. And so it's fun to see where that all began, like where the roots of that concept are, because now there's been 3 Foes movies, which is wild. But it comes from this one scene with these obscure, relatively obscure cameo villains. Also, Mysterio, in this scene, he's the last villain that Spider-Man fights, and he hauls them all off to jail. And he's played by the fan cast is Bruce Campbell, the master of the cameos throughout the real Raimi trilogy, the Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. He has cameos in all of them. And Ash Williams himself. And it's based on a real storyboard for Spider-Man 4, which is really cool. And I think it's brought to life really well in this script. Yeah. It's a really funny little moment.
I believe this entire opening scene is very much in line with what they had planned for Spider-Man 4.
I believe so as well.
They were talking about like this montage where he takes out a bunch of like C-list villains and stuff. And it really is like one of the best parts, if not the best part of the script. It is just
I might agree. Well, and it takes me to what we talk about, like doing these projects. I remember we had this big debate once upon a time, like a year or two ago, about like whether or not it's better to have like generic villains in these like minor like grunt roles basically, or if you should put in like some obscure comic book character. That's something you thought about quite a bit, as far as I know. Although, I mean, you in your scripts, you just put original characters in half the cast for all of them. So. Am I wrong though?
This has only happened for like 2 of my scripts. Okay.
Oh, come on.
And I would say the results have been, somewhat good. Everybody loves Sharanya Mishra.
Somewhat good.
Yeah.
Everybody wants somewhat good in their content.
I mean, I don't know. I only one person has reviewed Doctor Strange Odyssey as of today, so I can't.
And who is that?
I can't. That's you.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe you said Sharanya Mishra is a good character. I'm sorry, we're getting off topic. Anyway,
no, it's okay. Listen, keeping it casual, we're keeping it loose. That's fine. This scene with Mysterio in Spider-Man 4 also is the debut, the origin of another really solid, iconic, I would say, like performance writing wise from Nigerian Prince, another one of our favorite people.
Icon,
yeah, and I believe a pretty significant collaborator with you, right? You guys have some irons in the fire, right?
We have lots on our plates. I can say we will be.
Oh yeah, you're so busy.
I mean, I haven't really talked to him about these projects in a while, but we have Deadshot and we have Suicide Squad on our plates. And he also has his Green Arrow thing on his plate as well. And I mean, we will be cooking with those when they happen in about like 10 years. I can't wait. But yeah, Nigerian is. I think he's definitely
a bit of an optimistic guess. 10 years.
Yeah. But Nigerian, he is.
He's that guy.
I don't want to rank our writers, but if I had to, he would definitely be in the top 3. He's in the top 3 for sure.
He's excellent, and his Mysterio is just so good, and it comes from this moment.
True.
Yeah, he's just excellent. And
he also plays a magnificent J. Jonah Jameson in the script.
That's true as well. Yeah, and it's funny because I think even in the original version, like he has the best writing. Like his writing is good in the original version.
I mean,
and it's like
It's
in the
crazy.
early days of FS, like really solid quality writing wasn't really very common in the original Discord production.
That's hard to find. And he has the formatting right too. I think he's the first person who did the formatting like this, like with the quotation marks. Like he does it all correct. Like I think we got this specific like formatting from him because like you can see you read it like in the Discord channel, you see everybody's kind of messing it up, and then he just does it. Everything he says, everything he
the
writes,
formatting
is correct. It's
hilarious
correct.
in the original Discord channel. The formatting is such a nightmare.
Oh my God.
Like all the direction is in italics, punctuation is optional. You know, it's hilarious. But yeah, so the voice of Mysterio, this Mysterio in particular, the Bruce Campbell, Quentin Beck, is like an FS trademark to me, in my opinion. Like it's really like, and it really stands the test of time, and it's very clear why like Nigerian was so like. He's another one of the goats, you know. You have to say.
I mean, like 7 years, and 7 years ago, he still has, you know, the same level of writing. Like it's kind of crazy. I mean, he's always been just this good. It's crazy.
True. And then in this scene, there's also one of the cuts to the Peter Parker side is the scene with Gwen Stacy and Kurt Connors and Gwen talks to Dr. Connors about taking Miles Warren's class. Miles Warren, otherwise known as Jackal.
Gary Oldman.
Played by Gary Oldman.
I
teasing
like this,
Spider-Man 5.
Yeah, I like this trend that they kind of continue from the Raimi movies. It's like they're professors or whatever. You know, you have Dr. Kurt Connors, he's going to become the Lizard, and then they also have, you know, Miles Warren, he's going to become the Jack. Like kind of like this trend, this thing they got going on where, you know, their peers just become their villains. It's kind of funny.
It's very weird though because it's freaking Gary Oldman. This is sort of teasing. I believe he appears later on in the script too, in just a short little scene. So we'll get to that. But yeah, it's just teasing Spider-Man 5 from Spider, who is no longer in Marvel or DC fan scripture. He's doing his own thing in Fan Scripture Plus. But nevertheless, obviously, he was a crucial part of the early years of the entire community. And like his voice in Spider-Man 4 was just about as relevant as Chucky's was. And then Spider-Man 5 is when he properly took that director's chair. You know, he took that seat. And I think the third episode is probably going to be Spider-Man 5.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to covering that. And then
I think I will say like this script in particular, like you know, like when we were, you know, just about to record this, like we said, we have some positive things to say, but mostly negative things to say. I will say when it comes to like Spider-Man 5, I feel like we will have a lot more of a discourse, maybe because when that script came out, the history of that script in particular, it was just there was so much discourse. It was crazy.
Yeah, we'll get to Spider-Man 5 for sure.
Like everybody, you know, when this came out, everybody loved this script, but I think when Spider-Man 5 came out, even then, people were, you know, kind of
divided.
Going after that. Yeah.
One could call it the Last Jedi of the Neo Raimiverse trilogy. Which is why it's your favorite, because you love the Last Jedi.
I don't like. It's not my favorite. It's not.
Well, we'll get to it. Yeah. So then we have that scene: Spider-Man fighting crime, taking down the Frightful Five, and him and MJ and Gwen Stacy and Kurt Connors just having a good time.
Yeah, it's a great
and then we see. It is a great scene, and then right after is when we get the introduction of our. I guess you'd call him the main villain, Vulture, who is
in a movie full of, you know, lots of villains.
Yeah, we'll get there. There's a lot of problems with Vulture in this movie, and villains in general.
I don't know. He doesn't really start off as a villain. I mean, we'll get to that.
No, not really. Well, sort of. I mean,
you're like the first.
It opens on him in this gross.
Yeah.
the first thing you see of Vulture is this gross, dingy-ass hideout, and he's reading news articles about Norman Osborn and Green Goblin and Harry Osborn, and it's like for someone who doesn't really technically start as a villain, like it's a very very villainous tableau, and it's really funny how like fast-paced and unceremonious this scene is. Like the main antagonist of the movie pops in and just spontaneously realizes that he thinks Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin, and then he calls Felicia, who we understand to be Black Cat, and it's like, it just happens so very fast, and there's no drama. It was very common in old FS for scenes like this, just unceremonious, lacking in dramatic tension, even when it's something big like the introduction of the main antagonist of a movie. So
one thing I want to point out is the newspapers. It says it's from 2007, and I believe later, like a little later in the script, Trask says like, "Oh, it's 2007." So this takes place, I think, in the same year as Spider-Man 3. That's kind of
which
crazy.
Is kind of crazy.
That is crazy. Like Peter's really going through it. That is
true.
Crazy.
That's true. Yeah, and also I have to mention, as I'm sure many know, Vulture was the real plan, as I said earlier, played by John Malkovich, and Anne Hathaway as Felicia Hardy was also the real plan for the real Spider-Man 4 that was canceled. But technically they're like new characters, so like when it comes to the fan casts, because fan casts are, I think, a really important part of our format, and they're a really crucial aid in like the visualization of the stories that we tell. And so it's odd going back to this where fan casts aren't really explicitly displayed or brought up. They're in the extras folder. You have the pictures for everybody who appears, but it's just odd going back to older projects when they were not really emphasized and didn't really have much effort put into them.
I mean,
I would say
we get Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
We'll get to him. He's sort of the reason I think that Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin is sort of like the detriment, I would say, but we'll get to him later. And then after that, we finally get a scene, a classic Spider-Man type scene. He walks up to a crappy apartment, but with Mary Jane this time, after their honeymoon, and they're going up to her apartment, but they find out she was evicted by her landlady, Mrs. Kirby, which is a funny...
And we do get I believe we get a mention of Kingsley here.
Yes,
in the script before he appears in, I believe, the next film.
Yes, it's really funny. Is Mrs. Kirby, Mr. Ditkovich, Steve Ditko, Mrs. Kirby, Jack Kirby. That's a funny little thing. But she says that she kicked out Mary Jane, and apparently Roderick Kingsley has moved into her old apartment, which is just another very obvious tease for Spider-Man 5, and we're still only in like the very first moments of the script. And it's just really funny looking back on how just shameless they were about sequel baiting in this Neo Raimi-verse trilogy. It's very funny. So they go back to Peter's apartment because MJ was evicted. They're moving into Peter's apartment, and we get to the return of the iconic Mr. Ditkovich, who I think is kind of like the most accurate on authentically written portrayal of any of the returning Raimi characters, like in a weird way. He's just so funny in this script, and he's like, his expanded role in this script like really works, and it's very endearing. And it's Butter, who is no longer in this community, sadly, but he was also fantastic, and he's just so good as Mr. Ditkovich. And it speaks to something I think that is sort of like the main core of this movie, which is that it's less Spider-Man 4 that is like completely dialed in on being an accurate representation of how Sam Raimi would do it, and it's more of like a Raimi memes movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many lines that are just literally just, I don't know, not even Raimi memes, just like references from other movies.
References to other stuff too. Yeah, that was such a common thing back then. Yeah. But particularly with the Raimi memes, like Mr. Ditkovich probably would never be in the real Spider-Man 4 the way he's in this. Maybe he would have appeared a little bit, but his role in this script is really good, I think, and it wouldn't have happened without like the Raimi memes fan base, as it were. It's weird though how Peter, he has a little conversation with Ursula here, and he's like blushing and crushing on Ursula.
Oh my god!
In front of MJ, it's so weird. There's a lot of weird romance moments with Peter in this script that we'll get to.
Oh my god, it is so.
Yeah, and then
it is so
Peter and MJ go inside, and they're all lovey-dovey and happy, and then they go to sleep, and Peter has a nightmare of Harry Osborn's death, and he wakes up screaming, and he's like, "Oh God, my life is so hard without Harry," and it's like, dude, 2 minutes ago you were talking to Mr. Ditkovich. Yeah, it's a tonal whiplash.
Married, you're back from your honeymoon. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. It's
tonal whiplash is a very common thing in Spider-Man 4, I would say.
True, for sure. They were not set on a tone for this at all. It was.
And I know you like tonal whiplash, but that's.
What do you mean by that?
Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is so weird and disjointed, but that's sort of the point.
Yeah, but
that's Strange,
the point.
You know?
That's the point.
But in this, it's just weird.
It is very weird.
Well, I mean, maybe you can like tonal whiplash just in general. You know, you didn't need to get so offended when I said that.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's weird here.
It doesn't work here. It works in other places, but it does not work here at all.
Yeah, and then the next day, we get to the scene with Miles Warren. Peter and Gwen are in the class of Miles Warren, nobody's favorite Spider-Man villain, played by Gary Oldman, like the greatest actor who has ever lived for some reason. And, of course, he's talking about like DNA and cloning. I will never understand why Jackal is one of the major overarching villains in the Neo Raimiverse trilogy, or why Chucky Spider decided to go with the clone saga for like one of the major through lines of the trilogy.
But, like, it's historically one of the most like hated comics ever. I mean,
it's wild. And I think, we'll have more to talk about it in regards to like the episodes covering Spider-Man 5 and 6. For now, it's just a bit of an odd cameo in a movie that is just mostly like untouched by that very weird choice, which is Gary freaking Oldman popping up in one scene to talk about cloning and to creep on Gwen Stacy, which is like the two things Miles Warren is known for. And then we have MJ auditioning for Romeo and Juliet, and there's the comically evil casting director who just fucking hates her, which is hilarious. That's how FS auditions felt back in the day.
That was great.
And then Peter has lunch again with Dr. Connors, and we find out Dr. Connors is moving to Florida. Guess what he's doing in Florida? He's working on reptile genetic research.
Oh my god!
It feels like a solid, like, I want to say 60% of this like opening prologue, first act, whatever you want to call it, is dedicated to sequel baiting for Spider-Man 5.
It's crazy.
We've seen more of the villains of that movie up to this point, roughly 35 pages in, that we've seen a Vulture, the main villain of this one.
Like, I really don't like how slow it feels. Like, it's like they get settled into the apartment, whatever, and then it's just sort of like this slice of life thing, like going through their daily routine.
I don't think that's bad. I just think I wish they were more committed to like a quality slice of life storytelling thing.
Right. I mean, it's just a bunch of, like, as you said, just sequel baiting, like stuff that could have just been cut, like stuff that doesn't need to be there, like, at all. But I think eventually
That's funny you speaking on a Chucky project saying you should cut things, because usually Chucky's the one giving you feedback on your scripts, and you stuff the crap out of your scripts. Like Doctor Strange Odyssey is so long.
It's really not, though. It's really not. I think you could read that in like 2 hours.
That long. Like, I can see it as a movie for sure.
Yeah.
But you can also sort of see this one as a movie. And I feel like this one, if you cut stuff, it might be too short. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Reading this PDF, I kind of, it was very, it didn't take that long to get through this, but it is 197 pages, I believe, and that's almost 200 pages. I don't know how long that would be if you like equated it to like a real film runtime. You know, like a page is 1 minute in a film. You know, like one page. I don't think that would apply here because there's so many other factors. Like they have
That's
the
always been
images.
The case with our format. Like it's never been 1-to-1 like that.
It's never been accurate. But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that could have been cut and just replaced with something that actually like mattered in the overall story.
Yeah, like just had a different vision. I think that's how I feel about it. So I also have to bring up one of the fun, like a lot of stilted dialogue in this script that we'll get to. But in this scene with Dr. Connors, he invites him out to Florida for a visit, and he says, "It'd be an honor, sir. I'll make sure to come once I have all of my personal dilemmas settled." That kind of thing is just hilarious, like so stilted, so just robotic. That was very common in fan scripture back in the day. And then Peter goes to start work as an intern at Oscorp. Why he would do this after Oscorp has been responsible for most of the villains he fought in the past 3 movies, I don't know.
It's very strange.
But, he goes to work at Oscorp. Bolivar Trask, the X-Men character, now runs Oscorp.
To this day, I still don't understand this. I still don't understand this choice.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how this got to like a point, like this character got to a point where it was a spin-off, right? With Wesley and Wesley Kingpin's henchman and then Trask. Like what the fuck was going on? That project has still not happened.
Wesley also a Daredevil character, by the way.
There's a lot of Daredevil
X-Men. There are,
I want to say, like, there was, I believe earlier there was a Daredevil reference, and I think at this point in the script there was also a Captain America reference, and it's like, I don't know. I know there was like the Doctor Strange thing in Spider-Man 2. They mentioned him, but I don't know. It feels kind of out of nowhere how like they sort of introduce other heroes because later in the script they're also like thanking Spider-Man, and they're talking about him like he's the only one that protects New York when obviously that's not the case. I don't know. I just think it's a little weird, but I guess not. I don't know. I mean, if you're gonna be using Stiltman, I guess you have to, reference Daredevil too, and fucking Kingpin, I guess it makes sense, sort of. It just sort of comes out of nowhere for me.
I think we will have a lot to talk about in regards to like Kingpin later on.
For sure.
But yeah, Bolivar Trask, played by Peter Dinklage, who played that character in X-Men: Days of Future Past, is absolutely bizarre. He runs Oscorp now. Peter goes to Oscorp. And he's waiting. He has a meeting with Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, and Peter randomly he's sitting in his office waiting for him, and he has another crisis where he like has this flashback to Harry Osborn dying or something, and it's like he starts crying. It's really weird, and it comes out of nowhere. And
another thing comes out of nowhere is like they bring up his father. I mean, I like this edition sort of. It feels very.
Toomes comes in. Adrian Toomes comes in, and he's sort of frosty, but then it's sort of like he's testing Peter, and Peter's smart, so he passes, and then Toomes is all nice and stuff, and he tells him he knew his father, which is like really weird, because like I don't remember a single mention of Peter's dad, like Richard Parker, being a scientist in the original.
I don't
movie.
either, and I have to say, like I'll get more into this later, but the way this is sort of structured and the way this like feels, I feel like they were kind of taking like a lot from like what the Amazing Spider-Man does, and it's kind of
I'm
weird.
Gonna say the exact same thing. Yeah,
Like-
it's so. First of all, Toomes and Peter, their dynamic is to begin with so similar to Norman and Peter from Spider-Man 1, but then also a lot of
Kurt
it is
Connors
like
and
copied
Peter,
from Kurt Connors in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, and it's so weird.
It is
Spider
really weird.
and Chucky at the time of writing the script, they hated him violently. They hate the Amazing Spider-Man.
I have to say, me and you, Johnny, we are defenders of those movies. Those movies are impeccable.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is my favorite Spider-Man movie.
One. Me too, man. I think that's a top.
It's incredible. Nobody understands it but us.
It's amazing. It's so good, dude. Like, God, it's genuinely
those
just
bastards, Spider and Chucky. They don't even know they're ripping off Peak when they're doing it. That's crazy. I'm just kidding, but no, it's super similar to Amazing Spider-Man 1, and it's really weird because they hated it at the time.
And even Peter is like asking like, oh, how did he know my father? And like he's questioning it like it's sort of like a mystery kind of. They don't really go into that, but like again, it's just taken from the Amazing Spider-Man. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And Toomes also hates Spider-Man, and Peter just mentions Spider-Man or asks about Spider-Man or something, and Toomes goes on this insane rant about him at the drop of a hat, and it's crazy. And the pacing and dialogue of Vulture's like villainous character, even when he's not really a villain yet, it's just so clunky, I think, and it doesn't really.
Yeah, it's very obvious he's a villain. I mean, of course he's gonna be a villain, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like if you were gonna
not do a lot of depth. There's not a lot of development, and I wish there was.
Yeah, he's really just
we'll get to this when we talk about Spider-Man 6. But in Spider-Man 6, I ended up playing Vulture because they needed a new person to play him, to write for him. And it ended up being me. And I want to say that I'm a better Vulture than in this original script, but I'm afraid that if I say that, it's going to bite me in the ass when we get to Spider-Man 6 and I find out the whole time my performance in that script was terrible.
I guess we'll find out. We'll find out. We'll find out. But I mean, there's an iconic thing that came from that. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. We'll get to it, man. So yeah, Toomes' insane monologue about Spider-Man, where he's yelling about how he hates Spider-Man. He's cut off by Bolivar Trask walking in the room. I don't even know why he's in this movie, but Vulture, Toomes, whatever you want to call him, it's so obvious. Like, he's got this caged bird in his office, and he's literally displaying like this high-tech wingsuit in his office. Like, I don't get.
Yeah, it's
such a weird choice to
make.
It's
so clear from the get-go. I mean, it's just it doesn't feel.
He's not really.
You don't feel anything for this guy. I mean,
the thing is, it was kind of clear with Norman Osborn too. In like Spider-Man 1, it was clear because he was Willem Dafoe. He just looked like a bad guy. Not that Willem Dafoe is a bad guy, but obviously he plays villains often.
I know, but I mean, with John Malkovich, you could have him start off very, he could be very just nice.
Well, yeah,
and
this script clearly wants for him to be like a mentor figure to Peter, like Norman was, or like Otto Octavius was, but it just doesn't have the content or the depth of content to like get to that point. And it feels very shallow and like
I feel
unearned.
Like at this point it was too much of a retread of those. Like I feel like we should have just done something different other than what those original movies did.
And also it's funny because he's got his what we assume to be his Vulture suit just hanging in his office, and he's talking all about it to Peter, and it's just like we're seeing the suit and we're seeing the wings, and he's talking all about the thrusters of the wings and just doing all this exposition. It's like an instance of show and tell storytelling instead of show don't tell.
And it's like it could have been more of a surprise. Like again, the way this movie is structured, it also takes from like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Harry being the Goblin and stuff. Whatever, yada yada. But like they specifically like hide his suit and stuff in that film, and like. Again, if you're gonna take from those movies, those amazing movies, then you could have at least done something similar where you hid the Vulture suit, like, because the way they talk about it, like I know they do the demonstration and stuff, but like I don't think they ever like show the specific suit like with the wings and stuff. So
we don't even really. Later on is when the cops sort of have the super suit, but without the wings. I don't think we even really see them using them, which is kind of a weird choice because that's sort of like a big plot point.
It is,
but anyway, we see this high-tech wingsuit, and Vulture's just being all villainous, talking about wings and birds and whatnot. And Peter closes out the scene telling Toomes he's excited to get to work, and Toomes asks him if he's ready, and Peter says, "Oh boy, yeah." Obviously, Spider-Man reference again. It's to be expected at this point, but it really is genuinely funny how many forced callbacks to Raimi memes moments there are, particularly in this script. It is an interesting hook though, because the Raimi memes communities were like the main marketing pools for this script. Like Chucky shared the script on Raimi meme subreddit, on like the Spider-Man subreddit, and it got a lot of attention at the time. And if it wasn't for the hook of things like oh boy, yeah, Mr. Ditkovich, like who knows if it would have even gotten off the ground, if it would have had viewers.
Right, true.
It's just interesting to think about. And then we finally get our first Daily Bugle scene.
Oh, this is a great scene. I love how like Jameson forgets that he fired Peter, but Peter just still shows up anyway.
Jameson, I literally had the thought, he's written so well as like super angry yet simultaneously airheaded. Like that's so good. And Nigerian, I believe, was Jameson. And he's we already sang his
praise. Always, we're this is a marathon. Nigerian, okay, you deserve it, Nigerian.
Yeah, and knowing how Jameson is handled later on in this Neo Raimi verse, like from Spider-Man 6, as well as the Jameson prequel series, both of which we will cover later on, it makes it like oddly like cozy and normal, just to see him in like a straight up Daily Bugle tableau in Spider-Man 4. And the atmosphere of the Bugle is really fun. You got Hoffman there and Betty, and it's just really fun. And we also get the debut of Frederick Foswell, an iconic fan scripture character, written by a fan scripture icon, our good buddy Mac the Milkman. Yep. I know you're listening to this, Mac. So hi.
Hello,
I hope you leave a like in the video.
I need my money soon, please.
Yeah, Foswell is so weird, and his inclusion is so random.
It is out of nowhere. At this
point, it does help to pad the Daily Bugle staff a bit. I think it might have fallen a bit flat without like something new to the Daily Bugle scene, and Foswell sort of provides that. And they're sent on duty to cover Wilson Fisk's press conference, which now that we're at this point,
okay, yeah, I want to bring up how
when he shows up. I think. I just want to say right now, perhaps the strangest and most unrealistic and inaccurate and unnecessary part of this script is Wilson Fisk.
Yeah.
And we're like talking about Fisk a lot. Yeah. Because along with Jackal and Vulture, he's sort of the overarching villainous presence in the trilogy.
So in this scene, like Jameson, like when he's talking to them about their assignment and stuff, he gives this huge exposition about Fisk, and like it's just explaining, I guess, where Fisk has been this entire time in this universe. And he just talks about how like he had to go to Japan and stuff for like 10 years of stuff, and then everybody forgot about him and all the stuff he did. I don't know, I just wish that like the Neo Raimi verse, I just wish that it took more from like the 2000 stuff and just sort of embraced it. Like I wish Kingpin in the script, I know he passed at this time, but I'm sure this would have been made before he did. Michael Clark Duncan, his Kingpin from Daredevil,
from Daredevil, like Daredevil 2.
He would have been great. I feel like if Kingpin was gonna be in the real Spider-Man 4, they should have just done that.
Yeah, but also I almost feel like they should have just come up with a new fan cast, like one that is tailored to specifically Spider-Man 4. Like it's really weird. Well, we'll talk about
it. It does act like Kingpin is more of a Spider-Man villain than a Daredevil villain.
Yeah.
I mean, Daredevil does not really get anything in this trilogy. He gets some mentions. I think he's in Spider-Man 6, and and I know he was gonna have the long-awaited Daredevil project. That's gone through like 8 versions or whatever. The first version of that was gonna be set in the Raimiverse, and it was gonna be set in like 1995, as the timeline in this PDF says.
But that never happened though.
I guess that was gonna explore this and the Daily Bugle and stuff.
Don't you just hate it when people don't deliver their promised Daredevil scripts?
We will be getting Daredevil this year. It will be happening, and it will be before May. I can promise you that. Anyway, maybe before the show comes out. Maybe before the show comes out. Okay. Anyway.
It's funny you mention the show because we learn here Fisk is running for mayor of New York. And it's hilarious. Daredevil Born Again comes out in like a month, and it's doing the exact same thing. He's the mayor of New York, which is hilarious. And his press conference is held in the Osborn Mansion for some reason, which is like, it's just an excuse to have Peter see the painting of Norman and have a flashback of his death, and then he sees the couch from Spider-Man 2 where Harry discovered his identity, and he has a flashback of that. The flashbacks are already like way too much, and we're still barely into the meat of this script. It's crazy.
And I feel like eventually they don't even do anything with those flashbacks, like his trauma and stuff. No. They won't do anything with it. It's just he's haunted by it.
Not at all. Like, and then he gets his new trauma at the end of the script, but we'll get there. Frederick Foswell immediately starts binge drinking at the mayoral press conference, which has a bar for some reason. I don't know what that was about. This point, I will say, is sort of where the script starts to fall apart. Okay, this is where things go downhill, and it'll be very obvious.
As soon as we get to Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, she's introduced in this scene. It just. It's really bad.
Well, while Foswell is getting sloshed, Peter looks around the party. That's what's written. He looks around the party. And it was supposed to be a press conference. That's what Jameson said. Is this a party or a mayoral press conference? What's going on?
What is going on?
It's so unfocused.
Okay, and I want
the narrative and setting.
I want to read this dialogue out loud. Out loud. He says to Felicia. Well, let's just say I'm flexible enough to get to those hard to reach places. Talking about being a photographer and stuff and taking photos of Spider-Man, right? And then Felicia responds with, "Are you flexible in other ways?" And Peter blushes, and it's just, what is going on? Like,
this is crazy. So Peter spots Felicia in the crowd, and she's spying on a vault that is apparently in full view, a few floors above.
I don't know how this works. This description confused me so much. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's so clunky and so unclear. And Peter is suspicious of her because she's looking at the vault. And then he walks up to her and starts telling her he takes pictures of Spider-Man. Like, that's the first thing he says. It's really random. And it, works. Like, she's interested in him after he says that. And she starts flirting with him. And like you said, they talk about Peter being flexible. And he's been married for 2 weeks now. I literally have no idea what this bit of the scene is. It's really.
So, I mean, we'll get more to this as we go on, but just Peter's portrayal, when it comes to Black Cat and Felicia, and his marriage with MJ, it's really out of character. How he just. I mean, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
So Felicia Hardy obviously is Black Cat. And her fan cast is Anne Hathaway, the very famous actress who was attached to play her in the real Spider-Man 4. And what's interesting is, in the years since, we've found out that Felicia Hardy wasn't going to be Black Cat, but she was going to be a character called the Vulturess, who would have likely been Tomb's daughter. And I don't know if Chucky and Spider didn't know this at the time, or if it hadn't been reported yet. This was
known information.
Okay, yeah, or they just wanted her to be Black Cat, but as a result, she's just Anne Hathaway's Catwoman from The Dark Knight Rises, right down to her first appearance being an undercover casing of a mansion that she's planning to rob. It's exactly the same, and I'm just gonna say right now, Black Cat is the worst part of the script by far. And she's not interesting. She really kind of sucks the life out of it because she's not written well. Her dynamic with Peter is really weird and comes out of nowhere. Even in just this scene, they're talking about dynamic fluids, and Felicia says Peter got some action with his aunt after prom because he went home and studied with her after the prom. It's really weird. It's not a good scene.
I will say, I think all of the portrayal of just every single female in this script it's
female.
yeah, I mean, every single woman in this script, you know, I mean, God, like it's bad. Like the
Every
people
single
writing this,
female, huh?
they didn't know how to write women. I mean, it's obvious, and I just want to say,
Yeah, I mean,
you should really read Doctor Strange Odyssey for a good portrayal of a, you know, just a strong female character. Sharanya Mishra, you know, it's a great character. You guys should go check that out. Anyway, getting off topic. Continue.
Thank you for plugging your own feminine portrayal in your own script. That's great.
Yeah.
So Peter makes a date with Felicia in this scene. Like they say they're taking pictures or whatever. Obviously, like they're going on a date. It makes no sense whatsoever. I don't know why Peter does this or why he does anything he does with Black Cat in this script. It's such a bad subplot. Like it's bad. It's just this is the first part of the script I would call bad.
And the thing is, this subplot takes up like, I would say 70 or 60% of the second act, and that's where the script really just falters.
The second act is like the weak part of this script. The first act, like that opening, is fun. The act structure in this script is also really weird. I'm not sure if you could separate it into 3 representative acts.
I don't think it's really a midpoint. I mean, I feel like when
the middle of the script is where it really falls apart. And Black Cat's the main reason why. So then we have Vanessa Fisk. She comes out and says it's a fundraiser, which is not a press conference. But that's why it's a party.
So this is a fundraiser, a party, a press conference. You know, like what the fuck is going on here?
And then she brings out Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, portrayed in fan cast by Vincent D'Onofrio, which still to this day stands out to me as one of the worst in FS history, which we've already discussed. Like, why would you not do Michael Clark Duncan from Daredevil 2003 or come up with a new Kingpin fan cast that's tailored specifically to the Raimiverse? Kingpin being in this movie in the first place, in this franchise, this series to begin with, again, it's just so weird.
I don't see Raimi doing this, and I mean, there's
so many definitely not.
There's like a lot of.
It's because of Chucky. He said Chucky has said that it was because he was way into Ultimate Spider-Man, the original comics at the time, where Kingpin's a significant villain.
Some of like the first Spider-Man is inspired by Ultimate Spider-Man, but I never get to that point where it's like I just can't see. I mean, this is something we'll talk about a lot, but there's just a lot of things we can't see Raimi doing at all. Like,
I would agree.
If this were going to be made, Raimi would not direct this. Like, that's
probably not. Or at least it wouldn't be like this, So then Peter, his spider sense goes off. He sees someone, or he senses someone burgling the vault that Felicia was staring at. And he abandons Boswell and he suits up and he confronts her, and Black Cat is revealed in all her underwhelming glory. And she's stealing something. And Spider-Man shoots one web at her. And then he face plants. And then he just quips a bit. He fucking face plants and then quips a bit. And then he just lets her take whatever she took. And she jumps out the window.
And I want to say, like, when she's opening the vault, like, it's specifically described to be like Pulp Fiction, like when they're opening the briefcase. I thought
which is really weird. And then one of my favorite bits of dialogue in this whole script, he chases her down after she jumps out the window. He jumps out the window after her, and she gets away. And Peter Parker, Spider-Man, genuinely says, "You have got to be kidding me." That's just, I mean, that's beautiful right there.
Also, I think another quip he says is, "Why don't we kiss and make up?" Like,
kiss and make up.
What was going on? I mean,
I think overall, Peter is written well in this script. Some of the Spider-Man quips are funny. Others are genuinely awful.
I mean,
most importantly, there's just way too many of them. Toby did not have a funny joke in every single sentence he uttered, and it gets to a point where it's really exhausting in this movie. Like every sentence in action-oriented scenes, he's quipping. every single sentence. It's a lot.
It's true. It's like, I feel like they were, I don't know, I think this is when it came around this time, Spider-Man PS4. I think that was something they were taking a lot from too, and then there's also like he uses like a spider tracker later or something. I don't think that's something Tobey would do. I don't think he's very technical like that. I feel like there's a lot of
like the poor Spider-Man, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So Black Cat gets away, and Peter and MJ have dinner with Aunt May in the following scene, and her this scene only serves to bring up Aunt May has Alzheimer's, presumably. At the beginning, she's talking about forgetting things, and she just out of the blue tells Peter she knows he's Spider-Man, like out of nowhere, and it's because she says she's gonna forget soon or something like that, and like that's sad. But this scene serves literally no dramatic purpose other than to show that it is her only scene in this script, and it's no purpose other than to show that she's losing it and that she knows Peter is Spider-Man. It's crazy.
I think it's very funny because I mean, thinking about the timeline of this movie, being made in 2007 or 2008, whatever, being set in that time, I just think it's funny because like Rosemary Harris is still alive and she's still doing great, and it's like, why is Aunt May just being portrayed like this? I don't know. I just think it's really weird. Like, it is sad, but I don't know. I feel like she could have been fine for this whole trilogy.
Yeah, and this scene also has one of the most unintentionally hilarious moments in fan scripture. The dramatic slow pan up from Peter and MJ crying in the car to reveal that Aunt May is in a memory care nursing home. Like, this scene is literally just to have an epic twist about Aunt May being in an Alzheimer's care nursing home.
I remember reading it. Like they tease it like 3 times that like she has Alzheimer's.
Yes, they're like, she always vaguely says like, "Oh, I'll forget," or you know how I am lately.
Hands up, it's hilarious. It's
so like some of the dialogue between Peter and May, like the sweet, loving dialogue is good, but like so many other scenes in the script, it's so ham-fisted and stilted that it just doesn't work. It doesn't resonate. So yeah, then after that we have Jonah at the Daily Bugle. They print a story making it seem like Spider-Man helped Black Cat rob the mansion. So the people of New York are soured on Spider-Man, and quite frankly, it doesn't really mean a damn thing. Like it just cuts back to Spider-Man doing Spider-Man stuff, and he fights some crooks in a car chase, just generic crooks, and
then
the car crashes into Joe's.
Yeah,
from Spider-Man 2, Mr. Aziz, another random Raimi Memes cameo. And this scene also, by the way, is another example of Spider-Man quipping in literally every sentence. This scene in particular, I think literally every single sentence in this scene, he cracks a joke. It's way too much.
It's so annoying. Also, I think there's like a interaction between Wilson Fisk and J. Jonah Jameson in the previous scene.
Yeah, they're talking the phones.
It's kind of hard. It's
kind of hard. It's also kind of weird because like
I don't think they show this interview.
Yeah, they don't show the interview. Fisk threatens Jameson, and Jameson says he refuses to be propaganda for Fisk, but then he sets up an interview with Fisk.
And then he gets him on the newspaper. It's like, what the fuck?
And it's fraught with these, like, what I presume to be errors, because there's a line where Jameson's chewing out Fisk and saying he'll bury him in the press like Spider-Man if Fisk goes to a competing paper. But then he immediately says the Daily Bugle will support the Fisk campaign. Like, why would you just flip-flop in one sentence? It's weird. Mr. Aziz's cameo afterwards, he's ranting about superhumans, which is just so strange.
It is.
And then Spider-Man goes to stop, I believe, a weapons deal, and he runs into Black Cat again. And it's just it doesn't get any better than the last Black Cat scene.
Dialogue.
Black Cat's the worst character, and I think she drags a pretty good Peter Parker, pretty well-written Peter Parker, just way down whenever they're in a scene together. Like, the written chemistry between them is bad. Black Cat's dialogue is bad. Peter's interactions with her are cringy, and just it's not good, man. It's not good at all. And they fight these thugs, and Spider-Man just stands by and watches Black Cat violently torture this guy until he passes out. Like, it's insane. And then he, like, before the guy passes out, he gets Spider-Man quotes Al Pacino in Heat, and he gets into Thug's face and he says, "Give me all you got." Like what is happening?
What the fuck?
Like these are the worst parts of the script by far, where it's just nonsense. And then after, oh my god! So one of the worst moments.
Yeah,
I think this next moment is probably the single worst part of the entire story. You're so aggressively unenthused by it. Like I can sense in your voice, like it's bringing me down. These black cats.
I don't get it. Like
no, so
literally, I think even making this in 2018, you have to realize that he's still married to MJ, and then they pull this. Like,
yeah,
it's so weird.
And so after that Black Cat scene, they go up to a roof. And Black Cat says, "Oh, you should let loose with your powers, and you should have some fun." And Spider-Man, for some reason, he like reluctantly agrees with that. When his whole thing is great power, great responsibility, and then he actively cheats on his wife by kissing Black Cat, and he doesn't stop the kiss; she stops it, and he's way into it. And they say, he says, "Wow, that was incredible." And she says,
"Wow, man, wow."
Yeah, he says, that was incredible. And Black Cat says, "I think it was more amazing." And it's just awful.
And then he immediately regrets it, but he enjoyed it so much. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then
it's unbelievable.
On MJ later too. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So
and then after this, the next day, he goes on the date with Felicia.
After the rooftop scene, he goes back to his apartment. And
that's right.
Smiles watching MJ sleep. After he
it's
just
crazy.
cheated on her. What the fuck?
Peter is so unlikable to such a bad degree here. And then the next day, he goes on a date with Felicia. Like, I don't even know what to say.
The whiplash of these events just happening. Like,
this whole affair comes absolutely out of absolutely nowhere. It has no build-up or justification whatsoever. It's completely out of character, and it's just bad.
It's
and then, oh my god, so they're on this date in this diner, and Hammerhead shows up, and it's just Hammerhead.
And
him and his crew. This is signaling like probably the worst like storyline in the script, other than the Black Cat like romance. This bit that's coming up here in the second act, Hammerhead shows up. Him and his crew are dressed like 1920s gangsters with Tommy guns. And Peter and Felicia both leave to suit up and fight crime. I don't know why Black Cat is doing that, because she's a freaking crook.
Yeah, and this is where they both find out. They both find out each other's identities. And it's just, I don't know. And there's like a Spider-Man 2 reference here, like when at the diner. Black
Cat, Peter and Felicia met like 3 scenes ago. Like they met at the party. It was like 3 major scenes ago, and now they're finding out each other's identities. And also, like Felicia walks up to Peter while he's changing into his Spider-Man costume, and that's how she finds out Peter's Spider-Man. And then Peter just assumes that Felicia is Black Cat, but when he first met her, she was staring up at the vault that he then caught Black Cat robbing after she disappeared.
And the dialogue here, he's like the way like this is how it's written. Like Black Cat lands next to him, Peter turns and sees her, and he's like, look, I can explain. And she's like, I knew it was you, Peter. And he's like, hey, shh. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's just so. And he's like, zip it, cat. There's people in danger. It's like,
yeah,
dude. Oh my god, it's
wild. So they fight Hammerhead and his gang, once again throwing quips in like literally every sentence. Oh, also, this is like the halfway point of the script, and Vulture has appeared twice now, both times not actually as Vulture. He's only appeared twice, and he's not Vulture, and it's like we're halfway in, and he's the main villain. That's pretty weird. It's almost like he's freaking like he's the Harry Osborn in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like he's not gonna be the villain until the very end.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying earlier. Like it's like they're taking from that unintentionally. I don't know. I mean,
and they're also taking from Kurt Connors in the Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Yeah,
like, it's crazy.
Like, what is going on?
Yeah. So Hammerhead gets away and for some reason he pulls up and kidnaps Mary Jane right after she's
just at her
cast
play.
as Juliet on Broadway.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and Hammerhead.
Crazy. I mean,
it's so weird, and they save MJ, but Hammerhead gets away, and MJ finds out about Black Cat, and Black Cat's super jealous that Peter knows another girl that he didn't meet 24 hours prior. Like, what are you talking about?
It's so weird how he finds out too. Like he's saying, "Oh, I'm just checking up on one of the women that I saved." That's all.
Yeah, that's so
weird. The
weird.
following line that she says, like what?
It's super drawn out.
And she's like, and she immediately suspects that he's lying about this woman that he knows. I'm like, what? How? How does she know this? It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's so MJ's upset about Felicia, and Peter has this line. He says, "Listen, I swear that I would never do anything to compromise our marriage," even though he made out with her on a rooftop under a starry night sky and didn't stop it, and also had a date with her the day after.
I don't know what was.
He also lied through his teeth that if she made a move, he would put a stop to it, which she did, and he didn't. I don't know why he's lying like that.
I don't know what was going on in 2018.
It's crazy characterization for Peter.
I guess people in 2018 just didn't think that was cheating, even though it
clearly... I don't know. Like, it's
what,
so weird. Like, Peter...
I genuinely wonder, like, what people were thinking about this.
In the comics, Peter Parker is like kind of a man slut. Let's be very honest here. He sleeps around more than people care to admit. I can't think of a time where he properly like cheats on Mary Jane. Okay, like that's crazy. I just can't see Peter doing that. Like it's crazy. Yeah, and they make up because Peter lies about his virtuousness, and then they drink champagne that Mary Jane stole from her abusive alcoholic father, and they go to sleep. Which is crazy.
I think one thing I want to bring up is like, what is their age in this script? Because I think
true.
When making this, like Tobey Maguire, he was almost 40, I believe. I mean, if this actually happened, he would be around 40, like 2012.
They're supposed to be like early mid 20s for sure. Because if this is set in 2007, it's about Spider-Man 3 time where they were already like Peter was going to propose to her, so it's just so weird. And then what follows that is this extremely bizarre, this is the beginning of one of the most extremely bizarre parts of the script, involving a gang war between Hammerhead's gang and a gang of crooks led by the Big Man, who I had genuinely never in my life heard of before he randomly appeared in this script when I first read it. I think he might have been in one of the like Spider-Man cartoons, like Spectacular Spider-Man, I think, but I can barely remember. This whole sequence is so weird because it's like it's following like these crooks and stuff, and it's like this whole one-shot take. It says of like this crook trying to escape and stuff. It's like Sam Raimi would not do the one-shot take. Yeah, and they're just getting like massacred. Like it's a proper gang war. Like the streets of New York. It says the streets of New York turn into a war zone, and it's like Big Man, this random freaking character, is sending these like anarchy revolutionary tapes to the news talking about a revolution, and Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk, is the incumbent mayor of New York, and she's giving a speech about gang violence, and none of this involves the main plot or Vulture, who still hasn't appeared since the beginning of the film. Like, this second act, if you could even call it that, is just so unbelievably sloppy and messy. Even if some of the concepts, like a super villain gang war, are really cool and could be awesome to see in a Raimi Spider-Man movie, even if it wouldn't be executed like this.
I mean,
that's a cool concept.
It's I don't know,
but it's just executed so poorly.
The way this comes about is like, it's very like technological. Like they're using like these enhanced weapons and stuff, and it's like, I just like, this is very like Spider-Man PS4-esque. Like it's not Sam Raimi
or the Spider-Man 3 video game. I don't know if you ever played that, but it's like, I have not. Okay, it's terrible, first of all, and second of all, that's what it's about. Is like these super weapons get out, and Peter has to take on all these gangs. Like it's just so weird. And then Peter goes to Oscorp. Peter goes to Oscorp, and he wants to find answers about the weapons that are on the streets. And finally, Toombs, Vulture, is in the movie again, and he seems really cool at first. And he says they're gonna confront Bolivar Trask together because they're Oscorp weapons. And like Toombs recognizes them on the TV, and they go to confront Bolivar Trask. And he says, Trask says it like he doesn't know how they got out, and he's trying to manage it. And Toombs says they need to fast track.
Like the way Oliver Trask, like Trask talks in this scene, it's like they keep like pressuring him on it, like, oh, like, you know about this, like, how can you deny this? And he keeps backtracking until he finally admits that like he knows about it, but like he's not involved in it. It's so weird.
Like, why wouldn't he admit? Like, it's on the news.
Yeah, right.
And there's rumors about it being Oscorp, and it's not like there's reporters in the room that they need to. It's stupid. Right. They confront, and they confront him, and yeah, like you said, he finally admits it. And Toombs says they need to fast track the Vulture project, which is hilarious. It's Toombs' flight suit design. They want to distribute it to the police to help contain the gangs. And then Peter and Toombs, they work on the prototype Vulture suit, and they have some bonding, and it's weird. Then they present the project
It's exactly like the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I mean, the Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Yeah, like
Connors and Peter, bonding, working
on the formula or whatever. And then they take the suit to the NYPD. In particular, Commissioner Jean DeWolf, with a fan cast of freaking Sigourney Weaver. I have no idea where that one came from. She was a last-minute addition. I think, like, on the day they did this session, like, this presentation was happening, and they decided to put her in. I have no idea why it's Sigourney Weaver as a fan cast, but she pretty rightfully thinks that injecting police with performance enhancers and giving them prototype war suits is a bad idea. Yeah. And instead she wants to call the National Guard. But apparently the National Guard didn't answer her, which, like, I don't know why.
Okay.
There's a serious crisis in New York.
It's part of the script. Like, I don't. This whole gang war and stuff, and like New York, like, is a gang zone, a war zone or whatever. This and there's like this National Guard like not responding to them. This whole part, I don't know. This just reminded me of like the Dark Knight Rises, but like not good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, no, it's funny you say that, because this press conference, Chucky said he had one line based on the Dark Knight, like a Dark Knight reference, and it's noticeable. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'd have to check, but it's like a reference to the mob meeting where Joker shows up in the Dark Knight, and he says, oh, I remember what it is. Jean DeWolf, she says, it's simple. We kill the gang leaders, which is why would she's the commissioner of the police anyway. So yeah, and Chucky said that this whole scene ended up being built around like Dark Knight references, which is just really hilarious. And Toombs, so they, Captain George Stacy, Gwen Stacy's dad, who was in Spider-Man 3 in this series, the original Raimi trilogy, he was in Spider-Man 3, and he's here now, and he says they will instead take the suits as is, without the wings, in order to create enhanced foot soldiers, basically, like for the NYPD. Like, they're just gonna make super soldiers without wings. And for some reason, Toombs is very unhappy about this, because he's just way into the wing, because he's a vulture. But, Mayor She-Hulk gives him the thumbs up, and it's just so silly. And Peter goes home, and he gets a voicemail from Black Cat asking him to come out at night and hang out with her, and he agrees.
Yeah, she says, like, oh, I'm so bored or something. Like, yeah. What the fuck, dude?
And so they break into Fisk Tower because Fisk, who is a private citizen, apparently runs New York City's CCTV, and he's not mayor yet or anything. He just does that. And they plan to break in and steal footage of the weapons dealer they fucking tortured to find out where the Oscorp weapons came from. And the awful flirtations and quips and odd ham-fisted feminism jokes from Black Cat persist about, like, her being an independent woman or whatever.
Okay, we have to read this part out loud.
So bad.
The little bird part. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Like she says, like I said, a little bird told me, about this information or whatever, and then Spider-Man's like, oh, and then you ate it. Absolutely disgusting. And then she was like, I didn't. I just chewed on it for a little until it told me what I wanted, then spat it out. Like, what the
That's
fuck?
crazy imagery for Spider-Man humor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
They crawl through a vent and they talk about Black Cat's ass, like nice view. They say that twice.
No, this is what she says. She says, what does she say? She said, she says, Peter says, like, oh, ladies first, like, you go on the vent first, or whatever. And she's like, oh, be sure to enjoy the view. Few men ever get the chance. Like, what the hell is going on here? Like,
Peter, they're crawling through, and then Peter himself says, nice view, after she, like, stops.
I don't know if he's talking about the men, like the guards, but like there's no description of him like looking at any guards like through a vent, but like she literally says, I never knew the sight of guards walking down red hallways with guns could make someone like, I'm so
super
confused.
weird. Like the descriptions are just so unclear, like we already said. She literally, Black Cat says, like, I gotta stop to scratch my back, and she literally just scratches her back in the air vent for like an uncomfortably long amount of time. I don't even know what the point is. It's so weird. But they get to the terminal or whatever, and they uncover footage of Big Man, Hammerhead, and the Oscorp weapons salesman, who's none other than Adrian Toomes. And he gave the weapons to Big Man and Hammerhead. What a surprise twist. I sure am glad we're 100 pages in and he's a weapons dealer and not the Vulture yet. But
130, by the way.
Yeah, Jesus. And Spider-Man and Black Cat, they leave and they take the footage, and Peter is beside himself, and he says he always trusted Toomes and looked up to him, but the man he respected never really existed. Keep in mind, they met less than a week ago, and they have 2 scenes together. It's so ridiculous. And Felicia suggests that they keep the footage, and Spider-Man kind of angrily says no, which then makes Felicia cry and say she's leaving Spider-Man forever because she thought they had something. Like, okay, girl, like, what do you, what? I really don't have words anymore. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, the next day, this is one of the weirdest scenes. The next day, Peter somehow convinced Jean DeWolf to have an interview with him, a random photographer she met once when he was working as an intern at Oscorp. And this interview is with an hour's notice in the middle of a violent gang war. And they do this interview. Peter says, oh, this is some of my favorite dialogue. He says, let's start with the basic questions. And he asks her how long she's been on the force and why she became a police officer. And she has this thing about, oh, I've been here for 20 years and I just really wanted to help people. And then Peter says, I see. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Like, what? And this interview, by the way, is 4 questions. That was the 3rd question. Strawberry, by the way, is her favorite. And then he says, final question, and asks her for her thoughts on Spider-Man. And I literally could not begin to tell you what the point of any of this is. Peter tries to give her the footage from Fisk Tower, but it's inadmissible because of the exclusionary rule of illegal evidence in legal proceedings, which is crazy that now is when they're busting out the legalese for Spider-Man. It's the exclusionary rule of illegal evidence, but okay.
I mean, like, if you were gonna do, like, say something like that or whatever, like at least have, like, fucking Matt Murdock in the script or some fucking shit instead of this character nobody gives a fuck about. I mean, Jesus.
There are multiple times when Peter is fighting Stiltman at the beginning.
Right.
He says, oh, even a blind man could beat you.
Right.
And then later on, I think Black Cat says something,
she
even
says
a
something
blind
too,
man could.
That's right.
Yeah, the 2 of the same, like, alluding to Daredevil joke. Like, I don't, it's weird.
You literally have Kingpin in the script. It's just like, just put him in there at this point. Like, get Ben Affleck in there. Come on. Like, geez. Yeah,
Ben Affleck for sure. Yeah. This movie doesn't have enough evanescence, though. That's the thing. It doesn't have any butt rock in the soundtrack. It doesn't work out as well.
True.
Peter leaves looking like an idiot from DeWolf's office, and then it turns out she's corrupt, and she takes a call from, you know, an unseen evildoer, and she smashes the drive. Then we go to Oscorp, where Peter anonymously leaves another drive with the same footage on Boulevard Trask's desk.
Bro had two.
I don't know what the point of her being corrupt and smashing that drive was for, but okay. And then Trask sees the footage, and he comes in and he's all angry, and he confronts Toombs and shows him the footage. Toombs has this line where he says, Bolivar, it's 2007. You know how much technology there is that can falsify footage like that. Like, okay, dude, 2007. Yeah, right. It's the same year as Spider-Man 3.
Oh my god, dude.
It's so, Trask doesn't buy it, and he says he respects Toombs, so he won't immediately turn him into the police for some reason, even though Toombs, like, he doesn't believe Toombs. But he does fire him and erase all his records and research at Oscorp, which infuriates, you know, who up to this point is just this bird-loving elderly man, and he desperately tries to get Peter on his side, but Peter stammers some bullshit, like he's like, I don't know, like it's written just like that, like with those pauses. And then Toombs presses him, and he yells, "I believe great power comes with great responsibility." Like he's yelling it at the top of his lungs. It's so weird. And then he's like saying he's so disappointed in Toombs, but then he says he cannot condone the erasure of Toombs' legacy at Oscorp. Like,
it's
what?
Dude.
Yeah, I'm super worried about the vulture erasure here. The bird erasure. Toombs tries to punch Trask, and he fucking face plants on the ground.
How the fuck do you miss a fucking punch on him, dude? I don't get that.
Oh, you know.
Also,
I'm sorry. That sounded, you know, negative about little people, which I didn't intend for it to. That's just a weird moment.
There's this one point in this scene where like they describe how like tall he is against Trask.
Yeah, Toombs is like trying to do power move, like towering over Trask, and it literally says he's 2.5 times the height of Trask, which is like a hysterical description. He gets escorted out, and he's babbling about like the destruction of his legacy, and it's just a bog standard Spider-Man villain thing at this point. Like, Toombs so far has just been used so disappointingly, like so poorly utilized, I would say. Like, the character is kind of there, he's kind of entertaining at times, but there's just not enough to make him like mean anything. Peter quits Oscorp once and for all. Again, no idea why he would have started working there anyway. Like, it's so random.
And then the next set of scenes, it's like, again, just on this trend of taking from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Like,
it's just like the Harry Osborn transformation.
Yeah, he becomes the it's also like it's also like the lizard transformation in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, where he literally goes after the guy that, you know, like his boss and stuff. Like,
I was gonna get to that. So,
my god!
But first, I want to bring up the specific transformation scene. He injects the performance enhancers, which we never actually saw him get, or like we never saw those things specifically because it's obscured. When it's presumably what Black Cat stole from the Osborn mansion. But it's the weird Pulp Fiction thing where we don't see them, and then she hides them, and we never see Toombs get them. So like these things just come up, we haven't seen them, and he injects. And Toombs is just like he's just tweaking out right now, like swearing revenge on Spider-Man, and he transforms. It's crazy. And then afterwards we see, I kid you guys not, I like go and read it. It's a beat for beat carbon copy of the scene in The Amazing Spider-Man 1, in which the Lizard attacks Irfan Khan in his car on the bridge after he shuts down his project. Like, it's a copy. It's exactly the same. And it's so baffling, considering Chucky and Spider-Man so much, but copied so much of it for this movie. Like, why?
And the following...
Right down to the vague connection to Peter's father, by the way. Like, it's the same.
It literally is. And the following, I like the following, like, helicopter fight scene. And
me too. Yeah, that's from real Spider-Man 4 storyboards as well.
Because it's from real stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's good. I mean, I like it. I mean,
there's also this funny line when Toombs is about to kill Trask. He attacks Trask. That's what the carbon copy is. Trask in a limo, and it's just like that scene in Amazing Spider-Man 1. He attacks Trask and he's about to kill him. And he says, he says, now I'm just a corpse, a ghost, a vulture. And it's like, those things don't match up at all. What do you mean, a corpse, a ghost, a vulture? That doesn't make sense. Like, and then a big fight ensues, and it's real Spider-Man 4 storyboards of Vulture. This police helicopter comes in and he drops Trask, and he destroys this police helicopter. And then Spider-Man comes in, and Spider-Man saves the helicopter crew, and he starts fighting Vulture himself, which is also the storyboards. This is a really cool bit of it, I will say.
Culminates in like him dropping Peter and taking off his mask, like seeing his identity. It's really good.
Yeah, so Spider-Man saves the helicopter crew, starts fighting Vulture, and it's all in the storyboards. The storyboards are cool and kind of like iconic, I would say, like in Spider-Man internet circles. And it's cool because they're also really the main media that inspired and resulted in the creation of Spider-Man 4 and fan scripture in general. Like, if it wasn't for those storyboards with these moments that like people wanted to see so badly, this might not have even happened at all, which is crazy to think about. Spider-Man, he recognizes Toombs and he's caught off guard, but he says like, "Who are you?" Which is weird because it says he recognizes Toombs but says nothing, and the very next thing is a line of dialogue, "Who are you?" Which is just weird. Vulture, he pins Spider-Man down and he slashes him with his sharp wings, and it's super bloody. And it's kind of like the violence kind of comes out of nowhere, but it's actually cool. And it reminded me of like in Spider-Man 3 when Venom is holding down Spider-Man and Sandman's just beating him with his fist, and it's super brutal. But Peter's able to gain the upper hand because he knows the weaknesses of the suit, which leads Vulture to realize that Spider-Man must be Peter Parker. And then, he knocks Spider-Man down, takes his mask off, or slashes his mask, and Vulture... this is sort of the intro to the third act, I would say, and it's like it's getting cool again. Like, this is a cool moment after we had so much of that like Black Cat crap. And the big problem with this script is that entire middle portion, second act, whatever you want to call it, is handled so badly. But like the opening of the script is really nice, and from here on out, it's not bad at all. Like, there's a lot of good stuff from here on out. But that,
like, all the parts that just take from what we knew about this, what would have been this movie, are like the best parts of the script. I mean, seriously.
And also, there is some original stuff that we're about to get to in the third act that is really good, and I think sort of makes parts of the script. But Vulture ends up beating the hell out of Spider-Man, destroys his costume or whatever, and sends him crashing down. And Vulture gets away. And Spider-Man walks to a convenience store because his mask is ruined, and he becomes the bombastic bagman, which is like a really fun gag that's actually executed in a pretty good way. And like, there's a reason to do a gag like that, and it's funny. So he goes back home and he tells MJ they need to leave. And this is intercut with Vulture in his base deciding to hunt down Peter. And Peter and MJ are like packing up and moving out while Vulture, it keeps cutting to Vulture like saying he's gonna kill Peter. Peter, when they're leaving, Peter has this really good, like really well written farewell with Mr. Ditkovich and Ursula, which is like honestly one of my favorite scenes in the script. Just like Mr. Ditkovich is so good in this.
I really love like this part of the script. Like going into Act 3, like the tension is, like there's momentum, there's tension, like it's really a rise. We're really getting somewhere. Like earlier it was just a bunch of trash. Like, but now we're really like.
That's harsh, man. Trash, really.
Okay, we're getting into the meat of the script. Is what I mean.
Well, I think a lot of that was meat. It just wasn't very good.
Yeah,
that was meat. That was fly bitten meat.
It was not cooked. We're getting into.
I like how I said trash is harsh, and now I'm calling it fly bitten meat.
We're getting into the cooked part of the meat. Okay.
Yeah, this is the cooked meat for sure, and it's not overcooked. It's not undercooked at all. It's perfectly cooked. Gordon Ramsay official. I don't know what I'm talking about. So Vulture, come on, we love Gordon Ramsay. Vulture comes knocking at Peter's apartment, and he like busts in through the window and it like explodes the whole wall basically. And but Peter and MJ are already gone. They go in a taxi. Who the taxi driver says where to, just like Eddie Brock did as the fake taxi driver in Spider-Man 3. Another little Raimi meme moment there, of course. And what follows when Vulture is left in the apartment alone with Ditkovich is, I think, my actual favorite scene in the entire script. We see Ditkovich come out and he defends his property from Vulture. And he's just super, like, he has a bat and he's just bravely, like, fucking wailing on Vulture, this monstrous dude with his bat. It's so awesome. And then, but Vulture, easily, he knocks out Ursula and he knocks down Ditkovich, and he's, like, choking him and like, attacking him and interrogating him. And Ditkovich just maintains his honor and his integrity, and he refuses to give up Peter. Like, his location is so good. He's so cool here. And even in the face of like all these threats and the threat of death here, and Vulture gives Ditkovich one last chance, and Ditkovich responds with the now genuinely iconic and actually legendary line, "Go to hell," which is just, oh my god, it's so good. It's an emote that we have on our server. We've had for almost the entire run. It's one of the best emotes. It's one of the best moments, one of the best quotes. And this scene, to me, is special for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's actually excellently written, which is, as we've said, pretty rare in old FS, and even in this specific script at this point. It feels natural. It's not particularly clunky. It's unexpected. It's pretty moving, and it's awesome. It's just so good. Secondly,
like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I feel like to me, this is like, how in Spider-Man 1, like J. Jonah Jameson like refuses to like tell the Goblin who Peter's, but it's like that, but like on a even greater level, because it's like so awesome, and it just genuinely feels iconic. Like, as you're reading it, like, this I think is a scene. I don't think Raimi would have had Ditkovich as like a major character who has like emotional moments in Spider-Man 4. I feel like
but
this is specifically for the Raimi memes people. I mean, this was...
Yes, but this scene specifically, if there were a universe where Raimi did that, this feels so authentic to what he would do, because it feels original, but it feels so natural and authentic to those kinds of scenes, just like on a different level. And secondly, for me, what makes it special is it spawned just a truly organic fan scripture original meme that has persisted for years, and it wasn't rooted in a reference to something else or mockery of like someone else's bad dialogue. Go to hell is one of the first FS memes, and easily one of, if not the most iconic. And it just comes
shout out to Butter. For real.
Yeah, Butter is such a like, it comes from the reverence and respect everyone had for a well-written and emotionally satisfying piece of original dialogue. And Butter, who, like I said, has since left our community years ago, he was just an absolute master, and he was a cool guy. And this scene's
not our best script, Kent Blake, which we will
Kent Blake, which is a spin-off, prequel, metafiction, whatever you want to call it, about Ditkovich as an actor playing in a James Bond-esque B movie. It's so good. So Ditkovich is killed by Vulture after this iconic last stand, and Vulture leaves as he hears sirens, and we are left with just a genuinely sad moment of Ursula cradling her father's body, and it's just sad because now we love Ditkovich after all these iconic moments, and it just really works. It's very good. Yeah, Peter and MJ, where they go to hide out is hilarious. They show up at Flash Thompson's house, the last place anyone would think to look for Peter. And this is a fun little moment, a surprising moment. Also teases Agent Venom, which is kind of hilarious. Agent Venom, the spin-off we ended up getting about Flash Thompson as Agent Venom, that's teased multiple points in this script, actually. He says he's going to Afghanistan. as a soldier, so that's
God.
sort of the Agent Venom storyline. Peter and MJ, they have dinner with Flash and his parents, and it's really just like a funny and awkward twist in the story, and it's also fun to picture Joe Manganiello's Flash Thompson returning in such a much more relevant way. Like, he's a really funny character in Spider-Man 1, and he's just super underutilized. Like, I think he has like the one cameo at the end of Spider-Man 3 at Harry's funeral,
But you can
and that's
barely
like
see
it. Yeah. And he apologizes to Peter in like this heartfelt and genuine way.
Oh, good, man. This is actually
It's
like,
good.
really...
It's for his treatment of him in high school. He apologizes like in a really heartfelt way, and we learn that once upon a time they were actually friends, like before high school, and they got up to some mischief together, and it's fun, and it's just really great text and context for their relationship. And Flash is just really likable and cool, being there for Peter and MJ and using his home to support them as long as they need. It's a great scene. Like, this third act is really, it comes back in this third act. Like, it's really good. And this group they go to Flash's like swanky uptown apartment after they leave his parents' house, and they just keep connecting and bonding and stuff and having a good time. And Flash implies that he makes a lot of money from being a middle school PE teacher, which is laughable, but whatever. Then it's revealed Flash has a new girlfriend who is none other than Felicia, our favorite character. Felicia and Peter, they're just acting like strangers up until Flash and Mary Jane leave to like go to rehearsal for her play or something, and they're not together for like 10 seconds, and they don't have any like meaningful dialogue here before Felicia asks Peter if he wants to go crash a meeting between Hammerhead and Big Man, even though she left Spider-Man in tears, saying they were done last time they saw each other. And Spider-Man accepts for some godforsaken reason. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, it's this isn't as bad as like in that second act, but Black Cat really, like, she is just the worst part, and she does bring stuff down. Like, I wanted to see more of that Flash Thompson stuff.
He says he calls like Spider-Man Tiger at one point. It's so fucking weird.
Yes.
That's MJ's line. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. And Spider-Man's like, don't call me Tiger, which is just so fucking, it's ridiculous. This whole romance is, it's not good, man. So they go to Hammerhead and Big Man's meeting, and we see Hammerhead and Big Man, and they're discussing like the futility of this gang war, because Big Man says neither of them is gaining like any meaningful ground with the NYPD pushing them back, and Big Man proposes that they unify their forces and end the war so they could fight the police. But Hammerhead is just like, no, I'm gonna be on top of New York, and he fucking shoots Big Man like out of the blue, and it just ends their truce. And then all of a sudden it's a big all-out gunfight. Big Man survives because he had a bulletproof vest, but then it's a big gunfight.
I think Big Man's henchmen are the enforcers.
Yes.
It's kind of like out of nowhere. I mean, they're like when he's broadcasting on TV, and they're there for that. Like, then they finally come here, and it's like they're just in like two scenes. It's kind of ass. Yeah,
it's Montana, Ox, and Fancy Dan.
Yeah.
We love Fancy Dan. He's my favorite character by far. I don't want to be too bold here. I think Fancy Dan is a better character than Spider-Man. I'm gonna say that right now.
What?
Yeah,
what
yeah.
the fuck
Fancy Dan
is
is just a much better. Fancy Dan is he's just the GOAT,
Okay.
They all get their butts kicked, and Spider-Man and Black Cat. Like, this scene it's sort of cool. It's sort of this big gunfight, but really it's just over really quickly. And Spider-Man and Black Cat, they make quick work of Hammerhead and Big Man, and they leave them all tied up in webs for the cops. And then we see a newspaper, and it says, Big Man is apprehended, revealed to be none other than Frederick Foswell. And this has to be nobody's favorite film twist ever, I have to say. But we do have to bring up Foswell is the OG Mac character. And he, his inclusion in this film is really dumb, and the whole gang war really isn't good.
And
but
is this reveal is also out of nowhere. It doesn't really make sense.
Yeah,
I mean,
we had one scene with Foswell beforehand. Like, it's no. Well, no, I think he shows up in one of the other Bugle scenes, but
yeah, he shows up in like 2 scenes before this.
Yeah, but nonetheless, he deserves respect for being the beginning of a trend of just goofy Mac characters, and that persists throughout the entire Neo Raimiverse franchise and still sort of persists today. Whenever we do new projects, sometimes there'll be a Mac character that is just this goofy character who's out of place, but we love to see it. We love Mac. Yeah, I know you're listening to this, Mac, so
yeah,
big love to you.
We can't. We are being held at gunpoint right now. We can't say anything bad about Mac. Okay.
Yeah. He's got Fancy Dan pointing guns at both of us.
What happens next is I think Black Cat and Peter are caught by MJ. Like, I think they're about to kiss or something.
Yeah, Black Cat goes upside down when they go back to Flash's apartment, and Black Cat's upside down. It's like Spider-Man 1 but reversed, and she tries to kiss Spider-Man, but this is where he finally says no. He rebuffs her, as he should have been doing the whole time, but this time it's just too late, because in the middle of what appears to be this sensual romantic moment, MJ walks in the apartment and catches them, and Peter tries to explain, but MJ just storms out, and he doesn't even really go after her. And Peter is despondent, and Felicia seems like she's trying to comfort him. But then she calls fucking Vulture and tells him she knows how to get Spider-Man's attention, kidnapping his wife. And she gives him the location. And Vulture, MJ and Flash are in a car headed to their play. And Flash is like trying to ask her what's wrong because she's really upset, but she just won't talk. And then Vulture comes in out of nowhere to take her. And like, this happens right after he gets the call of where she is and who he should kidnap. So I don't know how fast his fucking wings are, but it's a pretty quick turnaround. The absolute Chad, Flash Thompson, he tries to take Vulture down, and like he's kind of getting some damage in. But in the struggle, Vulture lifts him up in the air and drops him on the ground with his spine, and he's paralyzed. Brutal and comically transparent as an Agent Venom tease. Like, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Vulture, kidnaps MJ, and then Spider-Man arrives afterwards, and he finds, Flash all bloody and paralyzed on the ground. And Spider-Man takes his mask off, and he reveals, his identity. He reveals Peter is Spider-Man. He reveals that to Flash, and Peter, he shouts for someone to call an ambulance, and he tells Flash he'll explain everything, but he needs to find MJ. And then Flash tells him Vulture took her, and Vulture dropped him, and now he can't feel his legs.
So this next part is, we have in the comics, it's iconic that Green Goblin kills Gwen. This is like that. But I don't know, roles are kind of different. And it's on a bridge too. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah. So it is like that. It also is very reminiscent of like just the Spider-Man 1 Green Goblin bridge scene where he has MJ hostage, and it's a lot like this. And it also sort of homages Gwen Stacy's death, as well as, obviously just generally speaking, is a lot like Gwen Stacy. And Vulture, I don't know why, but it says Vulture has drugged MJ and she's unconscious, and that's literally, it means nothing. Or she's semi-conscious, that's what it says, and it has no, that has no bearing on anything. So Spider-Man, pleads with Vulture to that he's the one he has problems with, but he just gets attacked by the Sharp Talons again, and he's, just once again all bloody already, and his costume's all torn up. And Vulture, has Spider-Man at his mercy, but this is sort of a big monologue moment here where he reveals that he doesn't actually blame Spider-Man for turning him into what he is now. And Vulture, it's sort of a good moment. Vulture takes responsibility for his actions and says that his vendetta against Spider-Man is because he believes Spider-Man has ruined the city. because his presence as a costume superhero invites nothing but more damage and destruction, that kind of thing. And that with Spider-Man New York is just a lot weaker, severely weakened and dependent upon Spider-Man, to clean up their dirty laundry, even though, Spider-Man's very dangerous because he causes, a ton of collateral damage fighting the Rhino and shit. So sort of a standard like Spider-Man dilemma, I would say, but like it's kind of good here. He also says he says he's disappointed in Peter, like on a personal level, because he knows Peter's Spider-Man, and he says he can't believe that he chose, to be a vigilante with his power when, if he used his mind to be like his father, like to be a great scientist and a researcher, instead of just using his superpowers, he could not only be like his father, but even better than his father, which again, this is just the Amazing Spider-Man. It's really weird. But it's not bad here. No, I think it's a cool spin on Spider-Man's like dilemma of the Peter Parker Spider-Man balance, harkening back to like Spider-Man 2, I would say, when he actually loses his powers, but it still feels fresh in a way. I really wish though that this theme was a lot more prevalent and meaningful throughout the whole project, because it's just kind of too late for the concept to really conclude in a satisfying way here. Peter tells Vulture, he says, being Spider-Man is my true potential. And it's a moment that like feels like it should be really awesome. Like that's a really hard line and it should be like a really hard moment, but it just kind of is flat because I just don't think this script has the content and the depth to justify these moments feeling really epic in the way that like Spider-Man 2 does, with his whole dilemma throughout that movie, and then his scene with Doc Ock at the very end of the film. It's not bad though, and there's this cool Vulture tells Peter to prove that that's his potential. He says prove it, which I think also was a emote that didn't really catch on at the time and still hasn't caught on. But there was an emote called Prove It, and it was just John Malkovich's face, just unemotional. So no wonder it was a bad emote. But I remember Prove It. And he throws MJ off the bridge, and it's, what's going to happen, Peter leaps off the bridge and tries to catch MJ, and MJ stops falling, and there's a crack sound, and Peter's just going like, I saved the day again. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Web. Thank you, superpowers. Awesome. But then, he goes down and he slowly he starts realizing more and more that MJ's fucking dead. She got Gwen Stacy'd. And
I just think this is so fucked up that she dies knowing that Peter sort of kind of cheated on her. Like
crazy.
It's so God. I just wish Black Cat was not in this movie, or she wasn't the way she is in this movie. Because holy shit.
Yeah, it's super weird. And so I think there's a lot of weird choices in the Neo Raimi-verse trilogy, but I still think one of the worst is killing her. It's just so weird, and like
I don't know. I think even if she died or not, she was still not much of a character. Like, I feel like whenever people talk about those movies, they always bring up how they don't think she was much of a character, and I kind of agree.
I agree too, but it's just handled so weird. Like, you could have improved MJ. You could have made her more of a like connective character that the audience really connects with. As opposed to just this damn distress that you're just rehashing. You're rehashing, what she's been in the past 3 movies is the final act, damsel in distress. Peter's got to save her from the villain. But this time she dies, and it's a Gwen Stacy homage. So that's really weird. So it's also like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and obviously the original comic anyway. It's just handled so weirdly, and I think it was a really bad decision. I think Chuck kind of regrets it. I've talked to him about it before, and
I think if they just like developed her more, especially with her being like, Peter's, wife now, and then being married. It's like they could have pulled it off, but it doesn't really land well at all. I don't know. I feel like it's just, I don't know what the word is for this, but only a lot of comics, the hero through, it's like they just fucking like torture. It's like torture porno. I don't know what it's, but it's just like we're just putting Peter through.
Like
so. What do you say?
Like MJ's fridging. She gets fridged.
Yeah.
And yes, it is sort of like torturous for Peter in a way that doesn't feel good or not interesting really. It's just like a bummer. And Spider-Man 5 also is really like depressing, which is in kind of a comical way, but we'll get there.
That's like the main tone of that project, which again I don't really like, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. Also, evidently Chucky chose to kill MJ because he was trying to be accurate, because there were rumors of Kirsten Dunst not returning for the real Spider-Man 4, or the rumor that 4 was going to be filmed back to back with 5 with Dr. Connors as the Lizard, and MJ wasn't going to be in 5. Right. So that's, I guess that was the thought process.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's just so silly. So yeah, then Peter's just, it's like the Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's cradling her and
in a rage. Yeah, he almost kills Vulture.
Yeah, Vulture says, what does he say? He says, "You and I both know it was going to happen sooner or later. If not me, someone else, someone worse. I guess you're not as smart as you think," which is, it's crazy. Vulture has like no character in this. Like no real character. Like Chucky said that the idea for Vulture was that he is sort of his thing is like dramatic irony, I think is what he said. Whereas, the other Raimi films had very sympathetic villains. Spider-Man 4 doesn't have any ounce of sympathy whatsoever.
Not in
any of the villains. Well, except for like the Spectacular Foes in their own movies become very sympathetic, but like Vulture, hell no. And Black Cat literally has Peter cheat on MJ with her. Like that's crazy. And Black Cat also, we'll get to this in Spider-Man 6, but what happens with Black Cat later is crazy. Because she is essentially responsible for MJ's death in this movie.
Literally.
Why? Which is wild. But we'll get to that. So yeah, Vulture's just crazy, and Peter goes crazy. He just lunges at Vulture, and he does the "I'm coming for you" from Pawn Sacrifice, which is a classic Toby meme, and he's just beating the hell out of Vulture, and it's. I think this is Spider-Man 2. There was that whole cut sequence where Peter was gonna beat the hell out of Harry Osborn at the end of Spider-Man 2, which is unfortunately cut because I think that would have been really good. But that's sort of what they're doing here. Like he's just going crazy and not being as Spider-Man might be under normal circumstances. Like
it's something I don't know. Something I don't really like happens. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but Black Cat stops him from like really actually killing the Vulture, and it's like you are the cause of his wife's death, and now you're like, I don't know. It's just like I hate Black Cat in this script. Man.
Black Cat's the worst character in the movie by far.
Yeah.
And I get for some reason Black Cat stops him and it actually works to calm down Spider-Man. Like I don't. It's really strange. And
does he find out that she caught this? I don't think he does.
I don't remember, but for some reason, like this comes out of nowhere because up to this point, like we just had Vulture give this personal monologue about why he hates Spider-Man, and yet here, again, just sequel baiting, but this time it's flying in the face of what just happened with that monologue. Peter asks him who he's working for, and Black Cat says, "You want his boss. He's not like he's a pawn, and you want his boss." And Peter asks him who he's working for, and Toombs fucking says he's working for Wilson Fisk, which that comes out of nowhere.
True.
Comes out of absolutely
True.
nowhere. And like the whole Wilson Fisk thing, like if you cut Wilson Fisk out of this film entirely, I think it would feel at least like twice as Raimi accurate than it does as it. Without Kingpin, without this overarching Kingpin thing, it would feel way more.
Like it lessens him so much more. Like as the main villain, like he's just working for this. It's just like making him just a pawn in like a larger game is really not good at all. I mean, like especially the way Raimi does his villains. It's like they're all very like sort of singular. They don't really have any, you know, like any. They're not really henchmen to anybody. You know, they're just their own people. You know, they don't have to be this. You know, it's not good.
Yeah, it's super weird. And so after Peter leaves, Black Cat or Toombs tells him that it was Wilson Fisk that he was working for, which is so random. And then Peter says he's not going to waste any more time. He swings to Fisk's towers immediately, and then Black Cat walks over to Vulture and like talks to Vulture like they're allies. I don't do it when we get to Spider-Man 5 and this to do with her later in the other two movies. Which, listen, just as an aside here, I always maintain that Spider-Man 5 was the worst of this trilogy. It's not bad by any means. I just always sort of remembered it being the worst. Having reread this now and seeing how many flaws 4 has, it has me wondering, because 5 is a bit more maverick than 4, and it sort of does its own thing. It's in its own sort of like horror.
It's very unique.
Sort of, as we said,
it is very unique.
And
I feel like 5 is probably the most Raimi-esque of them all. It's probably like the one he would do for sure. Like out of them all.
Yeah, I think so too. We're gonna have to get to it and see how we feel when we reread that. But yeah, it's this one. I definitely right now I'm thinking 5 probably tops this one.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
From Vulture to Black Cat to Vulture to the gang war to Vulture again and then Vulture again and then Kingpin again, and it's so much and it's so unfocused. So Peter goes and confronts Fisk and he apparently he tells him he presumes that the gang war is because of Wilson Fisk. Like I guess Toombs was selling the weapons on Wilson Fisk's behalf, which wasn't said, but whatever. But then Peter's about to like beat the hell out of Fisk, but Fisk has like a security system trained on him or whatever, and Spider-Man just stops moving and he's just talking to Fisk. Like this whole climax, this finale ending, whatever you want to call it, so bizarre. Fisk like this just he keeps saying, they must say like 5 different times some variation of like, this is a much bigger situation than you understand. And Fisk keeps saying like, oh, this game is so much bigger than you can even imagine. This game took more planning than you'll ever know, or like he just keeps saying that, and he keeps talking about chess. Man, like it's crazy. What else here? So yeah, he brings up. Yeah, Hammerhead, Foswell, Toombs, all of them just pawns, serving no purpose until Spider-Man comes along. And then they do the thing from Daredevil. He says, ever since I was a boy, I've always wanted to make this city a better place.
Oh my god, dude.
We're talking about the D'Onofrio fan cast and how weird it is, but it's hysterical how all of his dialogue is written with like his cadence from the Netflix Daredevil show.
Yeah.
Like with the pauses and the when I was a boy. Like it's all written like that. The ... after like midway through a sentence. Yeah, and it's so silly. Yeah, and we find out that Toombs actually did kill Mary Jane of his own volition, and that Wilson Fisk was only interested in him to provide the Oscorp weapons, and so Toombs sort of went rogue when he became the Vulture. But this whole thing with Wilson Fisk is just part of his, you know, his big plan. He like reveals that he was the one that Commissioner DeWolf was talking to on the phone, like she's in his pocket. And then Black Cat comes in and she's just sort of like a villain. Like Black Cat's the villain, and she told Kingpin his fucking identity. She told him Spider-Man's Peter Parker, and like Kingpin just all up in his business and like he's saying he's gonna hunt him down. It's crazy, and he talks about Aunt May and Uncle Ben and his parents and his whole life. Like he knows everything about Peter now. Very much like you know, Daredevil. I don't think Daredevil season 3 had come out yet, but it is like that. Like where he just knows everything about the secret identity. And then you're asked, what do you want? And Wilson Fisk says, I want to become the Kingpin of City. Oh my goodness. Yeah, the Daredevil stuff in this is so weird. Like there's so many like Daredevil allusions, I guess you might say, and there's the whole Kingpin factor to begin with. Like it's so weird, and it's so crazy that like Daredevil himself never makes an appearance. I mean, Matt Murdock does, but like at the end of Spider-Man 6, like what? Like it makes no sense that Daredevil would have been involved in this somehow. I mean, he would have, you know, it's the fucking Kingpin. There's some behind the scenes story about that we'll tell in that Spider-Man 6 episode, which, by the way, we're getting close to the end now, so I'll start teasing the stuff we do later, and then we'll wrap up Spider-Man 4, but we'll say next episode, probably going to be Spectacular Foes of Spider-Man. I would love to get Senna on the episode for that. That'd be great, because he was the director of that original project. I'm sure he'd have great memories. And then we're going to do Spider-Man 5, and then I think episode 4 is going to be a little we're going to have in our back pocket for a while. And then episode 5, 6, and we're going to have Chucky as a part of that one. So that's going to be super fun. But yeah, so finishing up Spider-Man 4, like it ends so depressingly, even more depressingly than Spider-Man 3, which had Harry fucking dying. This ends with Peter Parker like giving in to Kingpin. Like he gives up, and Kingpin like fucking owns Spider-Man here. Like Kingpin wins here. Like it's crazy. Like it's Empire Strikes Back.
It is crazy.
It's wild. And he's like saying he's gonna have men keep an eye on Aunt May and
oh my god.
Yeah, the final scene is Mary Jane's funeral. And Aunt May is actually in attendance there. I don't know why she's here for this and she wasn't at the wedding, but yeah. We've got Flash Thompson in his wheelchair, you know, more Agent Venom teases. Stan Lee is the priest again, which is crazy because Stan Lee is the priest in the wedding is like a sweet little thing, you know, it's a happy scene. But here it's Mary Jane's funeral and Stan Lee is the priest. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, the Mary Jane thing just really sucks the wind out of the entire ending of this. Even after like a really good third act where got going again, like bad, I mean, man, it really nosedives because they kill off Mary Jane, which is just, it's not a good decision, and it didn't. I know, really work.
And it's like the last movie ended with a death, and now, you know, you're ending it with another one and a funeral. It's like, what the hell? I mean,
and Spider-Man 1 also did. With Norman's funeral.
Like it's just so dour.
It's Peter walks towards the camera like at the end of Spider-Man 1, because that's how a lot of the direction is in this. There was this one I forgot to mention. There was this one earlier when Peter and Black Cat rescue MJ from the Hammerhead car, and Peter and MJ are talking, and it's when Peter says he's just checking on one of the women from the car, one of the hostages, and Black Cat says, and the direction says Black Cat makes an expression similar to Norman's squint from Spider-Man 1, which is insane. Like, that's insane. Black Cat is squinting, and it's Norman's expression from Spider-Man 1. That's crazy to me.
Like,
so
why
much
would
stuff
she
like
be making an expression like that? It's just say she's squinting. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, seriously. But so it ends with Peter Parker narration, talking about great power, great responsibility, and how he failed Flash and MJ, and he says, it's great. This is kind of crazy Spider-Man dialogue. He says, "It's now my responsibility to avenge them both," which is wild, from Spider-Man. "I will take down the one responsible for all of this, Wilson Fisk. That is my responsibility. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man." And then we see Wilson Fisk elected mayor, and Fisk, giving a big speech, tons of cheering audience members, and it's just such a bummer, like out of nowhere. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, we get this has got to be the first sad final swing in a Spider-Man movie ever. Yeah, and it ends with a Daughtry song. So that tells you all you need to know right there. I don't know what the choice behind that was, but man, Spider-Man 4, where it all began,
I will say this, despite my problems with this script, I don't know, it has some good qualities to it, and I know, it being our first script, of course it's gonna have some issues to it, but in the end, it's readable. Okay, I mean, it has a plot. You understand it.
I have said this before. When it comes to old FS, it sounds like readable is like a condescending, passive-aggressive thing, but no, that's like an actual compliment, because so much stuff
we have some scripts that you cannot read. They're just
you guys thought listening. We're wrapped up with Spider-Man 4 now. You thought we were going hard on that, maybe. Like, we were being negative. We were being really critical.
Just wait until we get to Curse of the Pink Panther, okay? Just wait until we get to that.
Why'd you gotta single that one out? That's our boy Max project.
because I'm gonna do that thing. I'm gonna promote my script again, okay? There's a much better Doctor Strange script than that one. And it's called Doctor Strange Odyssey, written by me. You got to go read it, please. Give me some reviews, please.
That's a great project. Thank you for plugging it once again, your own script.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, no, there's some real crap from old school fan scripture, and it's really that's not a slight on anybody in particular. None of us knew what we were doing. Like, before too long, we're gonna get to Batman Nightfall, which was my first project on DC fan scripture. It's horrendous. It's like one of the worst things
it's readable. It's readable.
I think Nightfall kind of toes the line of readable, but when it comes to Spider-Man 4, it is very readable. It's got a lot of good stuff to it. It's got a lot of good scenes, even. It's got entire good scenes, not just like good concepts. Like, the Ditkovich scenes in this script are amazing. I think easily the best part of it, particularly like his death scene, is fantastic. The opening scene with the wedding and the supervillain montage at the beginning is great. The dinner with Flash Thompson, that kind of stuff. There's so much good to this script. There's so much bad to it too, unfortunately. There's so much that is poorly executed and leaves you wishing it was done better. But I think overall, for our very first project, even with it being like the revised PDF form, this is a solid read. Okay, I think it's enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, it really is interesting going back to where it all began, our early days, after so long. Like, I hadn't read this script in a long time, in years probably.
Yeah, me neither. I hadn't read this since I first joined, which was 2019. I mean,
yeah, it's crazy.
And it's crazy to think that I used to think this was like perfect. Like, this was a quintessential
like,
script.
oh man, Spider-Man 4 was like one of the highest, most well-liked scripts we ever did.
Right.
Overall, I will give it 2.5 out of 5 stars. What about you, Noah?
I would have to give it 2 stars. 2 stars.
Damn. Okay. All right. And then there's some fun background information about this. Well, first of all, we do need to address a lot of the weirdness. Like, we brought up a lot of the disjointed aspects of the story in this script. That's because with this being the very first one, the outline, like I said, it was sort of written on the fly. And a lot of the individual writers writing the characters were coming up with their own ideas and just putting them in on the fly, like for entire scenes almost. Which is wild to think about now when we have such comprehensive outlines and direction and standards now. And also some fun stuff happened. Some really funny stuff happened. Someone at some point was going to do a Spider-Man 4 comic and actually did a panel for, I believe, one of the Vulture fights with Spider-Man. It was actually really cool looking, but nothing ever came of that, obviously. And then God, there's an infamous story about the Spider-Man 4 audio drama that someone tried to do. And I believe we had somehow I believe it was our good friend Mac the Milkman was a moderator on the Discord for the YouTuber Godzilla Mendoza. And somehow, some way, he convinced him to record Peter's dialogue for an audio drama for Spider-Man 4. Which is absurd. Yeah, it's Spider-Man 4 is sort of like our crown jewel for better and for worse, just because it's so iconic and it did start everything. And so there's a lot of story behind it, and you'll find out that there will be a lot of story behind the other Neo Raimiverse projects as we get to them. But for now, I mean, I think that's it. You have anything else you want to say about Spider-Man 4, Noah?
Shout out Nigerian, shout out Mac, once again.
Yeah. Shout out Senna.
Really,
shout out Vic.
Shout out Vic. Shout out Senna. But really a huge shout out to Chucky, for really just putting it all together.
Huge shout out to Spider, the original studio executives.
They really, we wouldn't have what we have today.
We wouldn't have any of this.
Their work.
We wouldn't have any, of this awesome fan scripture community that's letting us do this fun new show, let us do our projects. You and I are good collaborators. At this point, we've got a lot of that we're going to work on. I think 2025 is going to be a great year, a big year for fan scripture. I think this podcast that we're doing is sort of going to be one of the first steps towards like rejuvenating like the activity and output on fan scripture, I would say. And I'm really looking forward to that. You and I have a lot of great ideas.
I'm really excited.
We're gonna do this year. I mean, you I believe you said your Daredevil script that's been in the works for years now. You want it out by May. Am I correct?
Yes, it will. You will have a first session. You will have roles posted before May for sure.
Yeah. So
I can promise you that.
I hope that happens, and I'm gonna have my own Marvel project that's gonna be coming out hopefully this year, with roles and auditions are gonna be happening. I think, maybe not. I might write it myself. I don't know yet. I'm still undecided, but it's gonna be a good year for sure. Especially with this new.
It's gonna be a great year. Just speaking for myself, I am hoping I'm gonna have at least like 10 projects out by the end of this year. Johnny, what about you? What about you, Johnny? How many?
Me?
Yeah.
I want the specific project I have in mind that I want to release this year. I would say I want 4, which isn't it's not a whatever.
I mean that's you. I mean that's not a lot, but by our standards, that is a lot.
Yeah. It also is fun looking back.
And
at
I
how
hope the same.
Like Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6, I believe came out in like a 6 to 8 month span or something like that. Like crazy.
That was crazy. Yeah.
But we're gonna have a lot of fun looking back.
But because of that, they're also not great.
Yeah, we have higher standards now, as evidenced by like some of the low quality of this script and the other scripts that we're gonna get to. That's why things sort of come out more slowly. But 2025, I think, is going to be a big year for fan scripture releases.
For
and
sure.
I'm really excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this podcast. I'm excited for the both of us. I'm excited for everybody. Shout out to Chucky again for this script and Spider. Even though he's not around in Marvel and DC anymore, you know, it's all because of those two, really. When you think about like where this all started with this Spider-Man 4.
Mm-hmm.
So even though time hasn't been very kind to it, Spider-Man 4 remains to this day, I think, probably our most important project by far.
For sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess that's it. I hope you guys listening to this enjoyed this first episode of this new format. We kind of went very long because we had a lot to discuss when it comes to Spider-Man 4, but it's an iconic project for a reason. There's a lot to talk about with it. Yeah, I don't know. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope we do more. I definitely want to do at least those episodes I mentioned. My grand plan.
We're gonna do. What do you mean? We're gonna do like all 75 projects, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, you gotta be optimistic here.
Yeah, I am. I try to be an optimist. So I hope you all enjoyed it. Go read Spider-Man 4 if you haven't. Reread it. Use the review channel. You know, that would be a lot of fun if we could get a revamp and people leaving actually honest and critical reviews of projects. Right. That would be a lot of fun to see, I think.
Yeah, I think
so.
One thing I hope this podcast just shows people is that you don't have to, I guess, you can be very honest about your opinions.
Yeah, honest. And you can criticize, particularly of those older ones where just the standard was much lower, as we've been saying.
Right.
And even I feel like it's also important to find what you like about the projects you don't like. Because I would say I like this project overall. There's still a lot of things I don't like about it, but it's important to find the balance, be honest, like we said. Yeah. That's the whole point of the podcast we're doing now. It's to look back at our history with a fair view at everything we've done. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope you guys sort of are inspired to do the same. Maybe go reread Spider-Man 4, as I said, as the starting point for your thing. I know our good buddy Looney, the Excelsior Looney, name on Discord, he has this plan to free fans and a lot of people, not necessarily all of them, but just more reviews would be great to see coinciding with this podcast. And I hope you guys enjoyed this new podcast. We still don't know what we're going to call it. I think probably we'll get a different name than FS On Air, because that name doesn't really work for like what we're doing, this like retrospective. So yeah, I mean, that's really it. I think Noah, you know what? I had a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with you too, Johnny. I was kind of I didn't really have I wasn't alone, so I was kind of like moving places, and it was kind of a little awkward. But next time we record, I'm gonna fix that, and we're gonna just sit down and we're gonna talk thoroughly.
This is our first episode ever prototype, so yeah, figuring it out as we go. But I hope you guys thought it was as fun as we did. So thank you for listening, and
thank you guys.
Have anything to say to close out our show?
I think I'm gonna. And this one's for you, Mac. I'm just gonna say, yabba yabba do. Okay, there you go, Mac.
Fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
I will say, be excellent to each other. That's a quote I came up with myself just now. So.
Oh wow.
For all of you listening out there, be excellent.
It costs a lot. It costs a lot to be original.
That's a Johnny original right there. Yeah. All right. I guess we'll see you guys in the next episode when we talk to Spectacular Foes. See you then, I hope. All right. Bye.
Ciao.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay. Woo.